I work part-time in a local pizza shop as a delivery guy. It was Saturday night. My colleague had an unexpected break, so my boss asked me to cover his shift. Around 11 p.m., I got an order to the house on the side of the forest. This place is literally out of nowhere that doesn't even show up on GPS. Well, it took me 45 minutes to get there. It was a rustic wooden house. Dang it! I took the pizza to the porch and rang the doorbell. I waited for a while, but no one appeared. So I rang the bell again. When I was about to call my boss to cancel the order, I heard footsteps in the house and the door opened. A well-dressed man stepped out. He just stood there, saying nothing, staring dead at me. Sorry for the late delivery. Anyway, here's your pizza. You don't need to tip me. He just stood for a moment, then flashed a weird smile. Okay, thanks for the pizza. Would you like to come in for the birthday party? I didn't want to come in and was about to refuse, but he continued. My daughter's party. Being bullied, no one came. Hey, if you feel uncomfortable, I totally get it. Poor this girl. I was in the same situation before, so I understood that feeling. I agreed to join the party. I followed the man into the kitchen. The house is so old that I can hear the wood floor creaking with every step. In the middle of the kitchen is a large dining table placed in the middle of the room. I was looking around. Suddenly a voice shouted from behind, startling me. Happy birthday! Seeing my cut face without a drop of blood, he seemed apologetic, joking. Sit here and wait. I'll go call her. 5 minutes, 10 minutes passed by. No one showed up. I walked around the dining to discover that there was a door in the corner of the kitchen. Being curious, I peered in. Oh my God! I saw someone in that 10 square meter room. Although I couldn't see his face clearly, I recognized the uniform. It was a pizza uniform, exactly like the one I was wearing. He was strapped to a chair and almost motionless. What's happening? I called out, Hello? Are you okay? At this moment, the man slowly raised his head. His mouth was glued. He made gurgling sounds. I froze. It was Jack, the colleague that was supposed to cover this shift. I noticed his pant leg was crushed. Blood from there was still dripping onto the floor. I have to help Jack. We have to get out of here right now. But then I passed out. When I woke up, it was already dawn. The rain outside has also stopped. Happy birthday music resounded throughout the room. In front of me was a lot of food. The man was chopping something on the cutting board. My body went numb. The pain ramped up. Jack, where's Jack? Why did you do that to him? At this point, the man didn't move, but his head slowly turned back. He calmly smiled and said, You did nothing wrong. I just have a different taste in food. This time, I felt the pain in my knee hurt, burning so bad.
Angrily, she slammed the glass of water on the table and broke it. Small pieces of glass were strewn over the table. All the guests were startled. Ivy worriedly ran over.
What's wrong, madam? What's wrong? Look at this!
Ruby raised the bunch of human hair close to Ivy's face, growling.
There's hair in my burger!
Other customers started whispering.
Sorry, madam, but there seems to be a mistake here.
Ivy hastily explained.
What do you mean by mistake?
Ruby opened her eyes widely. Ivy explained that the food here was prepared and served in hygienic conditions. Plus, the staff working in the kitchen had short hair, so there was no chance a hair could get in.
You mean I made it up by myself? No, madam, I didn't. You rat! How dare you? Where's the manager? Let me talk to the manager!
Ruby immediately grabbed Ivy's shirt and yelled at her like she would eat Ivy alive. But that wasn't enough. She pressed Ivy's head against the table full of sharp, broken glass. Ivy trembled to resist when her face was only inches away from it. She didn't expect that the first day of work would be so...
I want to speak to your manager!
Ruby continued to yell. At this moment, Danny, the store manager, appeared.
My apology for our new employee. She might be a bit short of experience. How can I help you?
Are you the manager?
Ruby looked scornfully at the thin man in front of her.
She slandered me. You gotta do something. Do something!
She finally loosened her hands on Ivy. Ivy was too scared to move, so she fell to the ground. Danny, with a polite smile, offered Ruby compensation. Not only another burger meal, but a takeaway combo of double cheeseburgers. But Ruby wasn't satisfied. She wanted Ivy to apologize to her in front of everyone. And Ivy did, in a patient way. Ruby sat down arrogantly.
It looks like you're lucky today.
Ivy, you can go inside and prepare the meal,
Danny said. After a while, Ivy brought out the food to Ruby. Ruby sneered and rudely snatched it. She sniffed the smell of food coming out of the bag and then quickly left the restaurant, just the way she did after cheating in other restaurants. Ivy stood there and watched the woman driving away, still shaking.
Hey, take it easy. We meet a lot of people like that.
A co-worker passed by and patted her on the shoulder. The mean Ruby was driving down the street, hitting the horn repeatedly. As her car pulled onto the freeway, she started eating the burger. She chewed hard as if she had been starving for a long time, not even bothering about the taste. One bite, then two, and three. She soon finished half of the burger. The pain came slowly. As soon as she realized something was wrong, she spat out the food. It turned out a lot of blood. Her eyes widened in shock as blood ran down her neck and clothes. At this moment, Ruby realized that there was a small piece of glass in her mouth. A stomach ache also started to hit her hard. She felt her throat burning and her stomach twisting with pain. Ruby quickly lost control. The car lurched and crashed into the roadside bar. It exploded shortly after. The incident was reported very soon.
That's Karen's car.
The co-worker in McDonald's panicked when she recognized the car and its owner, but then thought that it was fair.
She deserves it.
Ivy gave a forced smile, her eyes slowly moving to the trash.
It was Christmas Eve. I took my son, Tom, into the bedroom at around 10 o'clock. I gave him a cheek kiss. My little boy was lying in bed, resisting his sleepiness to tell me stories. "Mummy, I threw a big snowball in Mr. Ben's face this evening." Tom isn't a mischievous boy. But this was not the first time I heard some kinds of stories like this. Since today was a holiday, I didn't scold him, just asking, "Did he get mad at you?" I noticed the excitement in his eyes. "No, Mummy, he was just joking. that he would come back for a resentment. What a relief. Mr. Ben was our friendly and decent neighbor. If it wasn't him, Tom probably got in big trouble. Okay, close your eyes now if you want Santa Claus to come. I'll be back before you wake up. I promise. And I turned off the light and gently closed the door. It was just Tom and me the whole time, so I feel very guilty when I have to work on Christmas Eve. I forgot to mention I'm a nurse, and nights like Christmas would make me busier than ever. I locked the door and left the house at 11:15. Didn't forget to leave a glass of milk and some cookies on the table. As expected, I was so tied up that I didn't even have time to check my phone. It's already 7 a.m. Tom probably has been sleeping. I unlocked my phone to see a lot of missed calls. All are calls from home that were sent at 12 o'clock at night. Oh no! Knowing something was off, I rushed to my apartment. The door was only half closed. I was so sure I had locked it. There was snow on the doorknob and the floor. Tom, are you awake? He didn't answer. That's when I noticed the glass of milk was spilled on the table, pouring onto the carpet that Tom loved. I called his name, but still. When I got back, it was the dead silence. I glanced around. The apartment had stopped at the bedroom door. Oh my God! The door, it had a huge hole in the middle and was littered with traces of snow. Tom, not having enough time to think, I rushed into the room. It's like there had been a snowball fight everywhere. Fear and panic swelled within me. I rummaged through the closet under the bed to find nothing. There's still one place I didn't check. I brushed the snow off the bed, but still couldn't see my son. Under the snow there was a large pool of blood instead. Someone left a note. It read, "Tom is not a good boy. We always find wonder under the Christmas tree, don't we?" Trembling with anxiety and fear, I headed to the corner of the living room. The Christmas tree was flashing with lights. That's when I noticed bedside the gift boxes that my mother and I had prepared. There was also a box wrapped in red paper that I had not seen before. It was so big that a kid could fit. A kid like Tom. Tom. Never in my life had I experienced such horror. I stepped in the living room and shakingly opened the lid of the gift box. Inside was chest-deep snow and my baby boy. Tom couldn't move. Mouth was overstuffed with snow, and his eyes were red and watery.
The tragic death of Mary Martin, a 17-year-old girl, had caused a media stir. The murderer has yet to be identified. Police are continuing their investigation into...
Max turned off the TV and wiped off the tears on his cheeks. His limbs were still shaking. It was an email from Dr. Finn, which included the address of his clinic. Dr. Finn was his last hope of treating his severe insomnia. Max quickly changed his clothes and headed to the clinic. The clinic was located in a rather old residential area, which was difficult for Max to find. There was no signboard outside, which made him a little suspicious if this was a legal clinic. But it took him a long way here, so he didn't want to go home empty-handed. With the tired appearance of someone who had not slept for a long time, he knocked on the door. Dr. Finn was wearing a stained blouse, emaciated, and his voice was muffled. He invited Max to sit down on the worn sofa, then started to ask about his condition. Max said that he had insomnia and always felt very tired. Finn nodded his head, then handed Max a bottle of pills. "This is the cure." Max looked at the white bottle without a label. He frowned slightly and his face was filled with skepticism.
Don't worry. I've cured a lot of people.
Finn nodded as he pointed to a photo on the wall in which he stood in the middle. To persuade Max, Finn gave him a 20% discount and one more bottle as a bonus. Max finally agreed to buy the medicine from Finn, then rushed home. That night, Max had a good night of sleep. It had been a long time since he had slept so well. The first week passed well. One night, while Max was sleeping soundly in bed, his whole body felt suddenly so heavy. When he opened his eyes, he saw a black shadow hovering under the ceiling. Max couldn't move, as if his whole body were pressed down by hundreds of tons. That strange shadow suddenly rushed towards him. It was close enough that Max could clearly see its eyes, and its mouth was slightly white. And it was trying to merge with his body. In a second, the shadow got closer and closer. Its legs merged with his legs, then hands. Max kept struggling in horror, but nothing could help him out. The shadow's mouth opened, and there came a high-pitched scream. Startled out of his sleep, he tried to control his breathing, sweat already drenching his body. His limbs were finally able to move again. He must get away from this horrible darkness, but had no strength left.
Police are revealing more clues around the murder of Mary Martin. They are currently locating the suspect and increasing monitoring around the...
Max turned off the TV. Max was exhausted. He looked pale and visibly thinner. His eyes were sunken from lack of sleep, and his hair was messy. But he couldn't reach Dr. Finn. Max had been texting Finn about his situation since last night, but the doctor hadn't responded, and he hadn't picked up the phone either. Looking helplessly at the white bottle on the table, Max's mind went blank. He really needed that medicine. He would die without using it. The next night, he had sleep paralysis again. This time it was even much worse than before. Max heard wheezing in his ears. He even felt liquid drip from the shadow's mouth onto his face. After struggling to regain consciousness, Max took more medicine. While he was drifting off to sleep, he felt his whole body stiffen again. This time, he clearly saw the shadow shaped like a girl wearing a dirty dress. Her neck cut off and throat exposed. Max knew who she was.
Mary! Mary! Mary!
Max repeated the name in panic. Mary's ghost moved closer, squeezing Max's neck. Mary's shrill scream rang out. Her mouth opened wide, from which it spewed a slimy mass of fluid and maggots that fell directly into Max's face. Max woke up to find his whole body sweating. He immediately grabbed the medicine bottle from the desk drawer, poured the pills all into his mouth, and frantically drank water to digest them. Soon the bottle went empty. After swallowing all the pills, Max gasped heavily. Suddenly, he felt something wrong. His eyes rolled back. A painful feeling spread through his body, causing him to spasm his muscles. He clutched his throat and felt a hot flash burning his intestines. Max writhed in agony on the cold floor, struggling with a foaming mouth, his breathing even more difficult. After a while, Max stopped moving. He lay curled up, motionless on the floor, with wide white eyes.
A man has been found dead in his own apartment. Remarkably, this man is the boyfriend of the poor Mary Martin and is also the prime suspect in the murder. According to the police, he was paranoid after
Not a good person. Nick knows we can't trust people, but this time, he insists.
So what? At least you and I don't have to eat the trash.
Then, he walked away with a man named Alex. If only Nick could see the monstrous smile on that man's face before he left. Mr. Alex has brought me money like he promised. I don't know how much money Nick made, but a month later, I had an apartment to stay in. I even had enough money to buy a laptop and an old phone. At first, Nick and I couldn't meet in person, but we still talked on the phone.
You know what? I've never eaten that much food in my life. I'll send you the link to watch me on YouTube.
I clicked on the link. Then, on the screen appeared about a dozen videos of Nick sitting in front of a mountain of food. All are fast food, spicy noodles, and sweets.
I thought you only ate things like vegetables and fruits.
In response, Nick said,
Yeah, but audiences don't want to see boring stuff like that. Besides, fast food is delicious as well.
After a few months, Nick appeared more regularly on YouTube with the new title,
The New King of Mukbang!
Gradually, he changed so drastically that I no longer recognized him. My old Nick was calm and gentle, but this one is so rude, not mentioning he gained tons of weight.
Oh my god, how come Nick turns into this person? What happened to him?
As more and more videos are uploaded, less phone calls are made. Until one day, it's impossible for me to reach him. It's been a week since the last time we talked, so I am extremely worried. Since Alex refused to say a word, I decided to follow him. The plan worked. I was led to a large warehouse. I came in to see many small rooms, all of which are dark. However, there was still one room that had the light on. It was the same room Alex had just entered. I moved as quietly as possible and sneaked a peek inside. The things I saw in that room make me shiver every time I think about it. There was a man wearing a red shirt that I didn't even recognize. That man was so overweight that I can't imagine how he could walk. He was tied to a large iron rod. Blood and brown liquid was all over his body.
Let me go! Let me go! You cannot do this to people!
Just then, Alex appeared. In his hand were a lot of pills. He put the whole bunch in that man's mouth and forced him to swallow them all. Only then, when I could look closely at the details of the face, I realized it was Nick. Although his face was much different from before, those eyes, lips were unmistakable.
For God's sake, take these pills! You have another video to shoot in 2 hours.
Nick threw up both in the mouth and in his bottom. He struggled, howling in the slime and smelling terrible. I was trembling inside. My hand shook so hard that I could barely hold the phone. But still, I tried to record the scene because I know no one would believe me without the proof. Just then, Alex spotted my presence.
I don't clearly remember what happened after that. I ran like crazy and somehow I magically escaped from that warehouse. Of course, I reported it to the police. But even with the evidence I had, they still wouldn't believe me because I was just homeless after all. But you guys can. I believe that. And here is the video I took that day. Please bring justice back to Nick. Please, let me go.
If you don't shoot that video, you and that girl will be back to your garbage.
I had been close friends for a long time. We shared a lot of things in common, especially hanging out and eating. Until one day, We both agreed that we needed to lose weight for a healthy and perfect body shape. After a while searching, Kira and I discovered a yoga studio commercial that promised to help yoga practitioners get slimmer and stay in shape. That seemed to fit our demand at that time, so we enrolled for both. The yoga teacher, John, was a 30-year-old good-looking man with a toned body.
Yoga can do everything.
Indeed, he was right. After a period of practice, we could feel the change so obviously. Fitter, slimmer, and much more confident. Since I thought a course was enough for me, I decided to quit, but Kira didn't. She grew a big interest with this place. She wanted more challenging yoga poses and often stayed late to practice with Master John. Gradually, I could see her body become very sexy in tight training clothes. She often uploaded yoga poses on Instagram. Lately, Kira had been busy with her yoga classes, so we didn't see each other as often as before, and she couldn't even arrange time for a meal with me. One night, Kira video called to tell me that she was trying the Yoganidrasana, aka yogic sleep pose.
It's a really difficult yoga pose,
Kira said. But I noticed that she looked so different. Something seemed to be wrong. Her eyes were sunken as if she hadn't slept for days. She looked emaciated with many bruises all over her body.
It was yoga.
Mr. John must have forced her to practice a lot for this yogic freaking sleep pose. Then I found out that John asked Kira to practice every day, even though she showed signs of overworking.
Like, he's obsessed with it.
Kira sighed.
If you're too tired, you should take a break from yoga for a while,
I told her.
I can't. I poured a ton of money on it.
But she seemed to give away more than just money. All was for a desirable body, and I could completely understand that. After that, I did not see Kira nor hear from her for a week.
She must be practicing with Mr. John,
I thought.
But she could at least update something on Instagram.
I checked her account and didn't see any new posts other than a photo taken at the yoga studio with John. Another week had passed, and she hadn't even texted or answered my phone. Perhaps she was so obsessed with yoga. So one day, I decided to go to John's yoga studio. I pushed the door open. At this time, the studio had quite a lot of practitioners. I looked around, but I could not see my friend anywhere.
Here you are, sweetie. Want to start over?
It was John.
I'm looking for Kira. She didn't reply to my messages.
After a brief silence, he replied,
Kira is doing yoga in her private room. Do you want to have a look?
I said yes. I was so curious about Kira's training and how much she had progressed in the last few weeks. John took me to a separate room behind the studio outside. He opened the door and I stepped in first. Suddenly, I felt a hand from behind. It covered my mouth with a towel that smelled so strange. After a few seconds, everything slowly faded away. When I woke up, I found myself lying in the middle of a very dark room. There was a horrible smell. As I was trying to get up, I tripped over something and fell forward. The small light hanging in the ceiling suddenly turned on. I blinked several times due to the dazzling light, and when my eyes got to normal, the scene I saw made me scream for fear. It was Kira, but her limbs were twitching and contorting in a weird way. I realized it was the yogic sleep pose, the super hard yoga pose she always told me about. But her whole body was cyanotic and gave off a decaying smell of corpses. I threw up all my breakfast. Suddenly, the door behind me opened. John came in with a baseball bat in his hand and gave me a weird smile.
Have you seen my work? Do you want to achieve what your bestie did? I can help you.
I was panic-stricken. I didn't know what to do, but backed away until I hit the wall. Master John approached me, step by step.
Let me help you have a nice body shape.
I woke up to find my limbs were stuck. I couldn't move. My whole body was in pain as if my bones were broken into hundreds of pieces. I couldn't breathe. With a mouth filled with cloth, I could only cry in despair. And my ex-teacher, John, was standing there taking a burst of photos.
Such a nice pose. Very nice.
A few years ago, I was in a bad place. My guardian had kicked me out after graduation. I was so worried since I couldn't afford a place to stay at the time. A friend noticed and offered a place for me, since he has an empty room at home. I agreed. Looking back now, I wish I had just stayed in the street. He is a lovable guy, so his friends come to hang out often. Over time, they started to stay with us for longer periods of time, sometimes weeks. His friends were another group of brothers named Joe and Will. The big brother, Joe, is such a nice guy, while the younger one, Will, had a list of mental problems. He believed in the occult and anything of that sort. He would often look me in the eyes and tell me he could see how I would die. Once he even told me that I was possessed by a demon and I needed my soul cleansed. I never really believed in that stuff. Obviously, I was always looking over my shoulder and locking the door of my room. However, I forgot once. It was the day I had my night shift. I was so exhausted that I went to bed right after I got home. About 2 hours later, I suddenly felt something wet on my face. I tried to ignore it and convinced myself it was just a dream. After a while, I felt the wind blowing strongly against my face from nowhere. Feeling itchy, I opened my eyes to check time. The view made me tremble inside. It was Will. He was putting his face very close to mine, his face going wild and crazy. Turns out what I thought was a dream earlier was his drool and breath. I jumped up and pushed him hard. "What the hell is wrong with you?" His body shook like crazy. He couldn't stop muttering, "Demon, demon, demon." The next morning, I told everyone about that. They all knew he had these problems, but he was their friend. They helped him through the hard times and gave him a place to stay. Otherwise, he would be on the streets. I was always on guard around him after the things did to me. No one else seemed to be as concerned as I was. They should have been. One day I was sleeping and my phone rang. It was my boss. He asked if I could come into work an hour early. It was only 12 p.m. I was broke and needed to save money to get out of this house as soon as possible, so I said yes. I walked out into the living room to see my friend Joe sitting on the couch, while Will sat on the floor by the TV. I said goodbye and left for work. It was 5 p.m. when my shift at work was almost complete. When I was about to leave, a policeman approached me. "Hi, this is the police. Something happened at your apartment today and we need your support." I had assumed one of the brothers had been arrested for something illegal, but I was very wrong. The officer then informed me that Will had stabbed and killed his brother and my friend at around 1 p.m. I was shocked. I had just left the house an hour before it happened, and everything seemed fine. Our apartment was a crime scene, so I went to another friend's house to watch the news reports since the police wouldn't give me any information on the case. Over the next couple of days, the information began to be released. Will hadn't just stabbed Joe once, not twice, but over and over, and nearly decapitated the bodies. And my poor friend, he tried so hard to escape from that manic, but unluckily, he was bleeding to death. Will was caught hiding in the bushes near where I worked. I watched the news report in horror. We had known he was unstable, but this? He hadn't confessed anything. but the police found his notebooks. He thought we were possessed by demons, and this was the only way to free us. And my name, it is put in the last, except...
The Millers have 2 daughters, Clara and Ellen. Unfortunately, Ellen, the older sister, was born with a birth defect and spent the rest of her life in a wheelchair. It was a snowy day. Clara and Ellen just came home, and immediately her mother complained.
Clara, did you scare your friends with spiders? The teacher called me again.
Clara sighed, so her mother knew it. But because her parents were very indulgent, she would get away with it this time. As she thought, she put on a pitiful expression and said,
No, Mom, she made a fuss about it. It was just a prank.
Because she was protected by Ellen, she got rid of the crime. Then, Clara pushed Ellen's wheelchair up the stairs and went to her room.
Seriously? I only got 20,000 views for this video?
As soon as she opened TikTok, Clara was extremely angry. Actually, what the teacher said is not quite wrong. Not only did Clara bring spiders to scare her friend, but she also forced her to eat them alive. Clara responded with a shrill laugh.
No one dares to save you.
While struggling to find a new way to increase the view, she suddenly heard her mom calling for dinner. Clara just turned around and was startled because Ellen had been waiting for her at the door since. As soon as she saw Clara, Ellen quickly turned away. At that moment, Clara had a crazy idea. Ellen's leg wouldn't feel anything anyway, Clara thought. Then she hurriedly called down.
Mom, we're coming!
While setting the phone to recording mode, Clara slowly pushed down Ellen's wheelchair. She only went half of her way when the chair suddenly shook and Ellen fell down the stairs.
Ellen! Ellen, no!
Clara screamed, but she couldn't hold her sister in time. As soon as she heard the noise, Mrs. Miller rushed out of the kitchen, and witnessing this scene, she was stunned. Ellen collapsed at the bottom of the stairs, and due to the fall from above, the joint of her leg was broken and twisted backward. Even the wrist was no longer in its original joint shape. Ellen lost consciousness, and Mrs. Miller quickly dialed 911. No one noticed Miller's eerie smile as she pressed the save video button. 2 weeks later, Ellen had to stay at home. Since that video, Clara's TikTok view has significantly increased. Some praised, some criticized, but in the end, they all just considered it an incident. Recently, Clara had run out of ideas. She came back to a lot of things: music, punk rock fashion, and videos forcing her friends to eat worms. But nothing seemed to attract as many views as the scene where Ellen falls down the stairs. So Clara decided to make another video with Ellen, but this time she would be more creative. On a cold February evening, when the Millers were asleep and Ellen climbed onto a bed by herself, the house sank into the stillness of sleep. But there was one person who hadn't slept, and that was Clara. She was in the kitchen and streaming on TikTok.
Okay, guys, this is all we need.
Clara took out a sharp knife from the kitchen. Then she headed straight to the second-floor bedroom where Ellen was sleeping. Clara stroked her sister's serene face, curious about this face in a few more minutes.
Let's do this!
Clara looked into the camera and then slowly raised the sharp knife. With one hand, she pressed the rag to her sister's mouth and held it tight. With the other hand, she stabbed her sister with a strong, decisive blow to her stomach. Ellen woke up in a panic. Before she could understand what was going on, the next slash continued to fall, and then another to another slash. Ellen's pain was in her bones. She tried to struggle, but couldn't get rid of it. All Ellen could do was to let out a hum.
Don't spoil the evening.
As soon as she finished speaking, Clara stabbed the knife straight into Ellen's neck. Blood spurted from it, splashing all over her face and clothes. God Clara didn't think things would get this messy. She quickly covered the pillow over the face and neck of Ellen, who was now struggling on the bed. However, the layer of blood quickly soaked the pillow. It felt like enough now. Clara ended the stream, then quietly went outside the house and called 911.
Clara Miller, 14, was arrested at the scene. The murder happened while the Millers were sleeping, and no one knew about it. Due to blood loss, the victim did not survive and officially died at 4 a.m. today. A video is becoming viral on TikTok, believed to be the video the murderer shot right after stabbing her sister to...
I stabbed my sister. I stabbed my sister. I stabbed my sister. I stabbed my sister. I stabbed my sister.
It can get tiring to watch him go about his shenanigans in the pursuit of viral fame. Asking me to pick up things for him while he was traveling. To be honest, I was quite relieved since I didn't want to receive any more cheap view pranks from him. One evening I got home to find a big box waiting on his front porch. It was wrapped and glued very well along with the note, "Open the box right after you receive it." Damn it, I'm sure this is some kind of prank set up for me. I decided to drag the box over to my house to store it in the garage. I admit, I had trouble lifting the box on my own. It was really freaking heavy. I had been to the garage for a long time, so I struggled for a while to pull it up. As I was trying my best to lift the box, I tripped over a ledge in the door. I lost my grip on the package and fell to the ground and heard a light crack inside. God, I hope I haven't broken anything important. That's okay. I can blame the carrier. That's what I thought. I dragged the box the rest of the way, setting it in the corner for days. Until a few days passed, there was a strong stench rose coming from the box from the garage that I couldn't ignore. He ordered raw meat to gradually roast the mukbang or something. I covered my nose as I approached the box with a pair of scissors in my hands. I probably wouldn't even have needed them to open it, as it had become soggy enough at the bottom to poke through with a finger. I also prepared dozens of plastic bags to handle the pile of meat. But in the end, it turned out that I didn't need all of that. There was meat inside, but not beef or pork, but human flesh. No, it's worse than that. That's my neighbor lying in there. Dead. His flesh began to rot and decompose. I rushed out of the garage, unable to hold back the nausea that gushes out of my rectum. My body softened with fear. I still managed to call the police. It was kind of hard not to suspect the man with the corpse in its garage. After all, thankfully they soon realized I wasn't involved. There was one piece of irrefutable evidence in my neighbor's own hands that proved my innocence. A vlogging camera. They showed me the footage only once. Turns out my neighbor took on the challenge to resend himself from the shipping facility to his home. The last video on camera read, "Hey, what's up guys? I think I'm in a truck right now. I can feel it moving." On the last entry, the box toppled over. He broke his neck, and that was it. The camera continued to record until the power went out. There's one thing that I didn't tell the police. Just right before the tumble that leads to his death, I heard the familiar screeching sound. It's the sound of my garage door, slowly being pulled up. My neck. I felt like dozens of eyes were staring at me from behind. I turned around and got jump scared. At the end of the corridor, and not only one, two, but dozens of mannequins lined up. Jessie giggled.
You're not used to these things? Take your time, and you'll love it.
Her expression made me feel embarrassed. Was the let the light off situation earlier also her joke? I thought. Then I was led down the hallway and stopped in front of an old door.
So this is your room. I hope you like it.
As soon as I entered the room, I felt extremely excited. Not only did Jessie keep the room clean, but she also set up a few mannequins in the corner to help me practice. Oh, Jessie, I don't know how to thank you enough. After chit-chatting for the whole night, I went to bed at around 11 o'clock. When I was dozing off, I suddenly heard the melodious music echoing back, seemingly coming from the first floor. Didn't Jessie say this place is so quiet? Why is there music at 2 a.m.? Unable to fall back asleep, I followed the music and was led down to the dining room. What the hell is this? As soon as I walked down the hall, I was horrified to see Jessie holding a mannequin and dancing passionately. I couldn't see it clearly, but in the dim chandelier light, I could see a mannequin's arm hanging loosely and being swayed by Jessie. I moved closer, intending to call out, but just then I froze. It's not a mannequin, but a human. Jessie's dancing with the torso of a corpse. Panic surges through me, my body shook with fear. I have to get out of here immediately. But when I was about to run, I accidentally tripped on something soft. Immediately a fishy smell hit my nose, straight to my brain. I realized my hands were smeared in mucus. You must be kidding me. In the darkness, I noticed 2 or 3 other mannequins lying around beside me. Or they're not. Oh my gosh, they are definitely not mannequins. They are human corpses. I was falling to the pile of corpses. Suddenly my mind went blank, and everything quickly blurred in front of my eyes. Before I lost consciousness, I could still hear Jessie's voice say,
"Say hello to your new friends."
Vanessa took a deep breath. The last time she was in this class, the students, including one named Nick, pranked her with snakes and scorpions to expel her from the class. Even so, the principal didn't agree to change class for her, for the reason that the homeroom teacher hadn't returned to work. The kids started to gossip right after she stepped in, like they weren't expecting that this substitute teacher would return. Vanessa put her bag on the table, tried to act like it was nothing, and started her lecture. The kids seemed to be scared after getting a warning from the principal. They didn't chit-chat in the class or make fun of Vanessa anymore. During her lecture, Vanessa didn't notice the staring eyes and mischievous smile from the kid named Nick. Nick's evil smile showed up when he saw the stone hit the window. The sound from the window got Vanessa's attention. She went to open the window and look down, but she saw no one. At that moment, Nick suddenly appeared right behind her.
"Miss Van?"
said Nick. Vanessa looked at Nick warily, with her back facing the window.
"I'm really sorry for the prank. I didn't mean to scare you at all. Here's a gift for you."
Nick handed the beautifully wrapped bow tie gift, smiling sincerely. Vanessa was very surprised. She hesitated. This naughty boy really meant it. So she took the gift.
"Open it up,"
Nick urged. Vanessa didn't want to disappoint her students, so she unwrapped the gift. A black snake came out, terrifying Vanessa to death. She stepped back, unsteadily reaching out for Nick. He almost gave his hand to her, but then it pulled back. And so Vanessa fell out the window. The loud sound startled everyone who heard it. The whole class was shocked and rushed out to the window. Vanessa lay on the cement floor. Red blood quickly spread to an area. Her mouth moved and her body twitched slightly. Before passing out, she saw Nick by the window still looking at her and said,
"Gotcha."
Vanessa was taken to the hospital. In front of the school board, Nick insisted that Vanessa fell on her own. Besides, no proof of Nick pushing the substitute teacher was found, so he easily got away with his prank. Even so, he deserved an adequate punishment for it. A month later, Vanessa hadn't returned, and all the students believed that she was so scared that she gave up her job. At this time, the class had been over, and Nick had to stay to do the cleanup. He carried a bucket and a mop in one hand, whistling a melody. The sound echoed in the hallway, causing Nick to stop whistling. He looked around but saw nothing but an empty hallway. The light suddenly flickered. Nick's eyes were wide open, for he saw something at the end of the hallway. It was a person with a high heel on one foot, bare foot on the other, wearing blood-stained white clothes. The person's head was down with loose and long hair. That person had the same outfit as Vanessa. The light turned off and on again. That person disappeared. Nick rubbed his eyes frantically, but still, he only saw an empty hallway.
It's impossible. She's still in the hospital.
Nick confronted himself as he kept walking. Laughter echoed through the air, startling Nick. He immediately turned around. At the end of the hallway, there was Vanessa's ghost. This time, Nick could see her face clearly, blood pouring from her eyes and mouth, falling onto her skirt, staining her white shirt. Nick got panicked. Vanessa had come back for his life. Nick quickly ran out of the hallway. He was truly scared. The footsteps still echoing panicked Nick even more. He ran down the stairs but bumped into the ghost and tripped several times in fear. Nick ran up the stairs to the exit, gasping for breath. When he raised his head, Vanessa's bloody face appeared in front of his face.
Boo!
No! No! Nick screamed. He jerked backward and then slipped. He fell upside down the stairs. His arms and legs are bent terribly, blood pouring from his nose and mouth. With excruciating pain, blood quickly splattered on the floor. The person was approaching Nick. He couldn't move his arms or any other part and could only stare blankly at Vanessa approaching. Vanessa wiping the blood from her mouth, coldly looking at Nick lying on the floor.
Gotcha,
she said. Then she stepped over Nick's body, leaving him lying in his own blood. My girlfriend, Rosamund, was an Instagram influencer famous for her vegetarian lifestyle. To me, her eating habit was way annoying, especially when we hung out together. For example, while all I wanted was a quick meal at McDonald's, Rosamund was the opposite. She really hated it when I munched a burger. On one of our dates, we decided to go shopping, then eat out at noon. On the long street, we couldn't find any other restaurants other than McDonald's.
No, not again!
Rosamund shook her head.
Come on, Rosie. I'm so hungry. You don't love me anymore, huh?
I insisted. After a while, she eventually reluctantly followed me to my heaven of fast food. Rosamund seemed so disturbed at the menu.
Looks like I have to starve myself again.
She got angry because there were no vegan dishes. She left me at the counter and stormed to the booth. So I ordered my usual Big Mac combo meal and an unsweetened iced tea. When I came back with the food, Rosamund suddenly changed her attitude. Just a few seconds ago, she was mindlessly scrolling through Instagram.
Hope you enjoy eating meat. Yay!
She pouted and turned away. She acted as though I were sinning just because I was eating a burger.
Come on, Rosie. One bite won't make you sick.
I begged her again.
One bite? It's meat! Don't you care about those animals?
Rosie frowned at me, then pointed at the burger with an annoyed expression. I understood that she was vegan, so she was annoyed to see me eat meat, but her reaction was too much. After a while, the manager came to our table. I was expecting to be kicked out, but he just smiled gently and offered his hand to Rosamund. It turned out he recognized my famous girlfriend and offered her $500 to review McDonald's new dish. To our surprise, he gave Rosamund a small box with the McDonald's logo.
This is a special combo only available at McDonald's. I hope you will consider this offer. They're all vegan,
he said, winking. Rosamund looked at the box, then back at the manager incredulously. The manager nodded affirmatively. So Rosamund took the box from the manager and said she would consider the offer. That night, my girlfriend live-streamed about a McDonald's food box instead of the usual high-fiber dishes. She gobbled everything in the box, and after every bite was a compliment about McDonald's food. But just as the live stream ended, she immediately ran to the bathroom and threw up everything.
There's no way that was vegan.
She grimaced and looked so annoyed. To be honest, I thought she was merely acting. But what surprised me more was that she asked me to go to McDonald's. Had she really changed her mind? When I entered the restaurant, I couldn't believe my eyes. Rosamund was sitting in front of a large order of fries, chicken, burgers, and soda, and she was devouring all of them like crazy.
Rosie, are you okay?
I sat down in front of her.
Are these all vegan?
She continued to shove the food into her mouth as if she were starving. Even though I was a McDonald's fan, I was a bit disgusted to see my girlfriend acting like this. She was like a robot, eating a bunch of food within minutes without any intention of stopping. I mean, the amount of food on the table seemed too much for even two people.
Rosamund, are you all right?
I worried. Looking around, I recognized some other KOLs that I followed on Instagram. They were behaving as ridiculous as my girlfriend. The manager I encountered the previous day was giving the same special boxes to those customers. After this, we had a quarrel about how she was completely ignoring me and only paying attention to the food. But Rosamund just didn't care about me, and she didn't post anything on Instagram either. After 3 days, I'd had enough, so I came to her house to find her. Gosh, the floor was covered in paper boxes and cups, some with leftovers, and they were all from McDonald's. Sitting on the sofa, my beautiful Rosamund was no longer herself. She looked literally like a human balloon. Her face was full of grease and oil. She could barely move with her limp legs, and her hands kept shoving food into her mouth.
Rose! Rose!
I was freaked out and worried. I tried to stop her, but she just kept ignoring me. She went totally crazy for the food. Listen to me, she was just busy with her stuffing career. Finally, I had to call 911. Rosamund was taken to the hospital. At the same time, the food was taken for examination. It turned out that in those special boxes, there was a sort of strongly addictive chemical that forced people into stuffing themselves and making their bodies bloat up. The evil manager, who was now wanted by the police, ran away with the money. And my Rosamund, I don't think she'll ever recover her mental health.
McDonald's! McDonald's! I want McDonald's! Give me McDonald's! Give me McDonald's!
When I was a last-year medical student, I was sent to practice at a psychiatric hospital located pretty far from the city. On my first day at the hospital, I was quite creeped out. It's not like the hospital is haunted or anything, but I noticed the staff giving me an uninviting stare, and the patients looked like the kinds of people you would see in one of those exorcist movies. I remember two people that needed special care, one of them named May, the old woman that always acted like she was a kid. I heard that May had been an alcoholic for her whole life. She lost her child in a car accident, plus being abused by her husband made her health even worse. Every day, I had to play along with her game to entice May to take medicine. "Please play with me, Daddy." The other was a room away. He was a mutant about 7 feet tall. That creepy patient always gave me a disturbing staring, like he wanted to eat me alive. Once I gave him the medicine and reminded him to take it, but before I could finish my sentence, he lifted me up and squeezed me so tight that I could hardly breathe. Another staff member intervened in time and saved me. After that incident, I always watched behind my back just in case. That night, it's 2 a.m. When I was about to end my shift, my colleague hasn't come yet, but I was so tired that I decided to head home. As I was walking to the elevator, I was suddenly startled by a loud noise. I then turned back to see an empty hallway. That's all in my head, I thought to myself, and kept walking. But just as I stepped into the elevator and was about to close the door, I heard a giggling of some kids. "May, is that you?" No one answered. Curiosity got the best of me. I had to give it an investigation. The light of May's room was still off, but she was nowhere to see. While I was peering around to see if May had strayed into the wrong room, I noticed that the door to the tall man's room was not closed. Looking through the gap, I saw someone's feet lying on the floor behind the bed. Well, this is strange. Then, I gently opened the door to reveal the most disturbing scene ever. Lying there was May, surrounded by large pools of blood. The tall man, he was burying his face in her tiny belly, munching and growling. I was speechless at that moment. May didn't scream, but I could see tears welling in the corners of her eyes. And then she saw me, her hand still holding the heart shape that we had decorated since afternoon. Tried so hard to reach for me, but couldn't. "I'm sorry, my baby boy." Feeling nothing but blind terror, I rushed out of the room. I remembered calling the security and the police when shakingly stood in the elevator. Shortly after, when I was giving my statements, the police showed me the camera footage of that night. As I was lazily walking towards the elevator, the tall man's door opened, and when he stepped out, it seems that he wanted to follow me, but was held back by May, who also happened to come out at that moment. She was then dragged into his room. It has been a while, but I was still haunted. I received a phone call from my ex-colleague. While talking about the traumatic experience, he asked me, "By the way, did you watch him swallowing his pills?" An electric current passed through my body. I froze. The truth is, I was always afraid of getting in trouble with him, so I never did that.
It took me a couple of weeks to find affordable accommodation. It was the Celine Hotel, with a pretty cheap rental rate, even being located in the center of downtown Los Angeles. So, I booked a room without hesitation. Sharing a room with me was a girl from Canada, named Sharon. Sharon was quite weird. I mean, most of the time she showed a cold or grumpy face, which made it hard to strike up a conversation with her. More than once I saw her violently throw her bottles of medicine into the trash. but then just picked them up and put them back in her backpack. I guess she was suffering from some kind of illness. I felt for her, but her strange behavior really made me sick. I often heard her mumbling something as if she was pissed off. Probably she was implying me, but I was unsure as she didn't even look at me. One day, when I was about to change my clothes, Sharon suddenly swung the door open. She rushed and panicked while frantically rummaging through her luggage.
This is not good. This is not good,
she mumbled. That was so rude of her, and I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to have an intervention with Sharon, so I moved slowly toward her.
Hey, Sharon? No, no, no!
She shouted.
Can't take it anymore!
Then she turned around and grabbed my wrist. I didn't expect a petite girl like Sharon to be so strong. My wrist was squeezed so tightly that I started to feel the pain. Sharon panted, her bloodshot eyes staring at me with her gnashing teeth. She was going crazy.
Sharon!
I called her name in agony while her hand was still brutally crushing my wrist.
Why don't you let me go?
Sharon yelled, but I didn't understand what she was saying.
Why?
She suddenly grabbed my shoulder. I was really scared at this point. I used all my strength to push her hand away. God, she squeezed horribly.
Why? Why?
She still couldn't stop screaming. I had no choice but to push her so hard that she fell, then run away from the room before she could do anything worse. That's enough of it. I couldn't bear it any longer. Immediately, I informed the receptionist to move Sharon to another room. When the hotel manager came to my room very soon after, I laid still in bed and watched Sharon pack her things up. At that moment, she just looked at me, her eyes strangely sad. She dragged the suitcase and followed the hotel manager without saying a word. That day, when I took a shower, I realized the water pressure seemed to be weak with an unusual smell. So I turned off the faucet and then went to bed. In the middle of the night, while dreaming, I suddenly woke up to see a figure standing in the corner of the room. That hoodie reminded me of Sharon.
Sharon?
For a moment, I breathed a sigh of relief, but just a second later, I had a sense that something was wrong. Her whole body was drenched in water. I could clearly hear the dripping sound on the floor. Her hair was tangled in clumps. Her limbs were swollen and mottled. Sharon just stood there with her head down for a while. Then suddenly she walked away. For unknown reasons, I subconsciously followed Sharon even though I was stiff and terrified.
Sharon? Where are we going?
She didn't answer, but led me to the elevator. Sharon stared at the elevator buttons without saying a word. We walked through the hallway with bright red lights until we met a locked iron door. Sharon stopped. She suddenly turned her head. Her eye sockets were a black hole from which 2 lines of black water flowed. Her face was pale, puffy, with her mouth wide open. I woke up startled, sweat drenching my pillow. In the stillness of the night, I could even hear my heart pounding in my chest. It was just a nightmare. The phone kept ringing for a while. That was a call from the hotel manager. He declared Sharon was missing. They showed me the camera footage. Oh my God, Sharon! She was showing signs of strange behavior in the hotel elevator, as if hiding from someone. I was even more shocked when I realized that the time displayed on the camera was the day Sharon got mad. The police told me not to leave the hotel during this time. The missing case of Sharon was really shocking. Everyone was searching for her. I returned to the bathroom to wash my face. Then I found the water had an unpleasant stench. It even had an abnormal color, brownish and a rotten smell like sewage. I couldn't take this anymore, so I decided to report it to the hotel manager. It turned out I wasn't the only one having trouble with the water. A married couple on the same floor also complained of drinking water with a strange smell. A maintenance worker, together with the hotel manager, inspector, and the police, went to the rooftop to check the water tanks. And when the heavy roof manhole was gradually opened, everyone was all shocked and terrified.
When two guys who owned the luxury dark channel posted a video about the dark web dating site, my group set up a challenge. Okay, since we're all single, the challenge will be to find a girlfriend on the dark web. Then, challenge accepted messages pop up. As someone who is used to the dark web, I certainly can't lose this challenge. That night, after I accessed a dating site on the dark web, I clicked to see a list of girls who are available. If you've watched the video of Luxury Dark, you can probably guess what kind of weirdos they are. Some people have severely burned bodies, some have wrinkled skin, weirdly messy hair, or even distorted parts. Among them, the blinking black-haired girl named Mia. She has a hobby of collecting dead insects, just like me. After a few days of texting back and forth, Mia asked for my home address and I gave it to her. That very night, she came to my house. Mia wore a white ankle-length dress. She looked exactly like her avatar, with pitch black hair. What's strange was that she didn't wear anything on her feet.
Did you walk barefoot here?
Well, I took an Uber.
Mia replied nonchalantly, and just like that, I let her get in the house. That challenge, I officially won. But there is one thing my friends didn't know. I fell in love with Mia. It didn't take long for Mia and I to officially live together. Living in the same house with Mia is wonderful. Everything was great in the beginning. We get along really well, and we've never had more than a brief argument. But then she started humming. It's so dumb, I know, but she's always whistling this weird song, like the kind of tune you'd hear in a horror movie. At first, I would just hear her humming it when she was showering. Even though I tried to ignore it, I couldn't. It got stuck in my head and it drove me a little crazy. Just like the time when Adele's Easy on Me first came out. You know the type. After a week or so, I asked her what the song was, and she just laughed. I'm wondering if maybe she came up with it on her own, especially when she started doing it more. One night while I was sleeping, I was woken up by that humming sound like a loudspeaker pounding right next to my ear. I thought I was dreaming, but no, I was wrong. I opened my eyes to see she was lying on her side, staring at me and humming that terrifying, scary song again.
Jesus Christ, you scared me to death!
In response, Mia remained silent, and suddenly she smiled. God, that smile didn't just stop at that grin, but it stretched and stretched until her lips reached her ears.
What the hell?
I shivered but couldn't move. Just like that, Mia, with her bloody mouth, bared her sharp teeth and came close to me. Just when I thought she was about to chew my head off, Mia stopped, returned to her senses, and went back to sleep like nothing happened. That night, I lay motionless in that position until morning, unable to close my eyes, and just kept my eyes on the ceiling. The next day, I came home late from work exhausted, partly because I couldn't sleep the night before. Mia was in the kitchen preparing food, and she just kept humming.
Crazy bitch!
I felt like I was blowing things out of proportion, but honestly, how hard is it to just not humming all the time? I told her to stop, but she just huffed and kept cooking.
What do you mean?
She said. It seemed that she wanted to start the fight. I lost my mind. I slapped Mia hard. Just then, she got freaked out. She told me she wasn't doing it and didn't know what my problem was. She called me crazy just because I was getting a little upset, and somehow that was all I could take. I grabbed one of the cast iron pans from the stove and swung it at her head as hard as I could. Mia fell over and smashed her head on the counter, falling to the ground. I think I hit her maybe 3 or 4 times. I don't remember, but I feel horrible. I couldn't believe I'd lost my temper like that, and I have no idea how I can fix this, regardless of how much she might have been provoking me. So if you ask me, never find the lovers on the dark web. But you know what the weird thing is? She's still freaking humming. 2 days have passed. Mia was still lying on the kitchen floor. The blood had dried. Her eyes were rolling back and her jaw was shattered into 100 pieces. But she didn't stop. I just need her to shut up. Just shut up. Shut up.
It's a dreary winter day. I stand in front of my treasure, the Harry Potter collection, while sipping a cup of coffee. This familiar scene reminds me of what happened 10 years ago, when I was just a 10-year-old kid, being a boy who loved to explore things. My best friend at the time was Ronan. Being a die-hard Harry Potter fan, I just called him Ron. And since we're so close, I considered myself Harry as well. Interesting, right? Ron and I loved going to the train station after school. Back then, I always believed that the barrier between platforms 9 and 10 holds the secret entrance to the magical platform 9 3/4, which of course could lead us to Hogwarts. There was a man who often sat at the corner of the railway platform, wearing a cape, like a witch's costume. One afternoon, I noticed a young boy approach the old man with a wand in his hand.
Hey Ron, do you think he's an employee of platform 9 3/4?
No idea. Ron's dusty answer disappointed me. I stopped talking to him, turned to see the empty corner. The old man and the boy with the wand were no longer there.
Oh no, I lost track of them.
I came to the railway platform, but still, I found nothing.
It's dinner time. We need to go home.
After that day, Ron and I were stuck in the house for a whole week due to the heavy snowfall. As soon as the weather improved, I picked up the phone and called his house.
Hey, come over. We're gonna go to the station. Don't forget your wand.
By the time we got there, it was already dark. Only a few people were passing by. We stood in a familiar place, tried to find the employee of platform 9 3/4, but that day, he didn't sit in his familiar corner. Ron stared at me in the confusion, so I had to reassure him.
If you want to be a witch, you have to trust me. The other day, I saw that man took a boy to Hogwarts. That boy has a wand, just like us.
Then, Ron and I approached the place where the man usually sat, but it just made us more disappointed. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind blew up from nowhere. It brought goosebumps to the back of my neck.
Bruh, is that Azkaban Dementor or something? I don't know, but let's go home. It's getting dark.
I ignored Ron's words and tried to linger. A few minutes passed. From the darkness suddenly appeared a shadow, a thin and tall body. Oh my god, it's definitely Azkaban Dementor. In the distance, he was dark and threatening. A few seconds later, the shadow approached us and began to show its face. Underneath the cape, I saw ragged clothes. His face was terrifying and gave me nightmares for years. But in his hand was not a magic wand, a bloody knife. He smiled sinisterly, revealing jagged yellow teeth.
Run!
Ron yelled.
No, I spent my whole life preparing for this, and then loudly chant the incantation, Expecto Patronum. Yet nothing happened. The man almost caught me. While my legs were wobbly with fear, Ron grabbed my hand and we ran as fast as we could. Idiot! You want to die? Run! Just then, I tripped and got my feet stuck in the railway tracks. The madman was still standing over there and laughing. Oh my God, that's it. Am I going to die like this? My fear spiked. I frantically waved my wand to hope for a miracle. The train was already very close that could hit me in any seconds. When I'm about to pass down, Ron ran down and managed to free my leg. He made it out before the train cut through and left the madman, who was still laughing, wildly behind. That night, when Ron took me home, my dad got really mad. He thought I sneaked to the train station without asking his permission. Turns out his concerns are well grounded. During that week, the news had spread about the disappearance of boys my age. In the most recent case, the boy's mother said that after she lost her son while refueling at a gas station near the railway, and the common thing between the boy and the other victims is that they are all Harry Potter fans. My best friend Lisa was a wonderful person. This horror story I'm gonna tell you didn't happen to me. It happened to her. Unlike me and our friends back then, Lisa had no financial support, so she had to help herself. She had to do all sorts of part-time jobs to pay the bills. This was starting to interfere with her education and her social life as well. This really wasn't working out for her, so she started looking for smaller sort of side hustles online. I didn't know much about the website aside from the fact that it was known for adult content and pretty much every Instagram girl had one in their bio. Lisa bragged to me that she could make hundreds of dollars just by taking pictures. Men were thirsty enough to just drop money on a picture of her feet or a picture of her crying. Of course, from time to time, she also gets some weird requests from customers, some asking her to hold a hair clipper or demanding her to cry while tearing her fishnet tights. Out of curiosity, I registered an account, recharged to follow Lisa's account. I was really shocked. I warned her that it was a bad idea. Lisa was blown away by the easy money that my words no longer mattered. Some weeks later, I noticed something was off. Lisa was absent from her class, more frequently than ever. More strangely, Monday was always a fixed date for us to meet for lunch at the school canteen, but Lisa didn't even show up. I called her a few times, but got no response. At the end of the day, I decided to contact her parents' house, but they said they couldn't reach her either. When I checked my phone, I found out that she hadn't even been online since 2 days ago. Having a bad feeling, I called the police and reported Lisa as a missing person. The police finally got a warrant to search through her apartment, but when they looked through there, they saw no traces of any violence or that anything could have happened. A week, a month, and a half a year have passed. The police still have no clue. No one knows whether Lisa was alive or dead. Her parents are devastated, so am I. But I still pray for Lisa every day. And I believe she is in a much better place in the real world. A year has passed. It's not until now that I can finally let out a sigh of relief. It was a genius plan. I left her body in the basement of an abandoned farmhouse about 100 miles from the city. It's her fault. I couldn't bear the thought of her exposing her flesh and skin to such strangers. Not me. If Lisa hadn't been so stubborn, if she just deleted the damn account. things might have been different. I lived in a dormitory. My roommate was Adam. He is the same age as me, but a head taller than me. I'm a skinny, nerdy college student who likes to spend time online and playing games alone. As for Adam, although he always wore a hoodie, I know for sure behind that shirt was a tall, muscular body. He must have been the desire of many girlfriends. Despite his appearance, Adam is quite taciturn and quiet. We don't talk to each other much. I also respect his privacy, so I don't often ask questions. Like me, Adam usually stays in his room all weekend. He will be out of the house only on Friday night between 8 p.m. and 11 p.m. So, it was a Friday night. As usual, when Adam went out, I opened Omegle to meet and talk to strangers. You know, guys like me don't usually get the chance to make friends in real life. After skipping through a few boring chat frames, I stopped. I came across a familiar scene. The structure, painted walls are exactly the same as the dorm room I was in. However, strangely, in the middle of that room was a table and a chair. He didn't say no, quietly eating the bowl of soup in front of him. Hello, late dinner, huh? No one replied. It was only then that I noticed his odd appearance. Why on earth did he have to eat haggardly like that? He seems to be very hungry, but at the same time, so reluctantly. And if I'm not mistaken, I saw his tears rolling down his cheeks. Weird, I thought. At that moment, another figure appeared. In that dark space, I could only see the person's arm outstretched. He has an axe tattooed above his wrist. The arm kept stroking the boy, but this only made him shiver even more. This must be a joke. I left a message. Freaks, you guys are boring, and left the chat room. The phone fell to the ground, startling me. Looking up at the clock, it was already 2 a.m. I've been asleep since when, I don't even know. Adam was back. Suddenly I thought of the guy eating the soup. Curiosity aroused. I rummaged up and opened my computer to see if the show had ended. Jesus, what happened? On the other side of the screen was a horrifying scene. The boy just now had his face down on the table. The bowl of soup spilled out. A slimy liquid spilled all over the table. What? I glued my eyes on the screen. It's the weirdest soup I've ever seen. On the table was a red mixture. Crammed in the middle was what looked like minced meat. My body shook with fear. I panicked. My whole body, including the chair, fell backwards. It's disgusting. What the hell? Hearing the loud noise, Adam seemed to have woken up and ran to me to ask. I was still breathing heavily, unable to speak, only trembling to point at the screen. That guy, he seems dead. Adam helped me sit back on the bed. Okay, calm down. Tell me everything you know. Wait. This is the first time I've seen Adam not wearing a hoodie. And on top of his wrist is the tattoo of an axe.
It happened in summer, several years ago. That day, I discovered a painting titled Mrs. Night Friend while cleaning Lily's room. It was about Lily and a woman with extremely scary bloodshot eyes looked, surrounded by red, orange, yellow spots that looked like fire. The problem was that I had never heard of any friends from her before. I asked Lily about her new friend right at dinner. Lily happily showed me the picture. I asked her name.
Mrs. Knight, look here.
She looked over and pointed to the name in the corner of the picture. I asked her about the red eyes.
Because they were burned, Mommy.
Lily said innocently as she finished her dinner. The answer creeped me out, but I just simply thought that she had a good imagination.
So I can meet your friends?
I looked at her tenderly. She suddenly froze. Her face turned darkened. She stared at me with her big, beautiful eyes.
Do you really want to see her?
My heart suddenly pounded, and I nodded slightly.
Let me ask her first.
She finished her words and left the dining room. Since then, I felt the paranormal things happening in the house. For example, the sound of footsteps walking upstairs, or the crunching from the kitchen. But every time I went to check, I just found nothing. I thought it was some strange animal entering, because there were actually many trees and bushes out surrounding our house. That night, I brought some fruit to Lily's room. Then I heard her whispering to someone. There was a loud bang when I was about to knock on the door. I panicked and quickly turned the doorknob, but it was locked from the inside. I banged on the door, panicking, calling out,
Lily, what's happening? Open the door!
After a while, Lily opened the door. I looked inside but didn't find anything suspicious. Lily just stood there, bewildered, and looked at me. I asked her what happened. She said with a frown,
Mrs. Knight, she doesn't want to see you, Mom.
Then her gaze gradually shifted in another direction. Looking at her dirty hands, I guessed that she was just trying to distract me from punishing her. I sighed, took her to the bathroom to wash her hand and face, while warning her from playing with dirt before going to bed ever again. I finished taking out the trash, then came inside. That was when I saw Lily standing on the edge of the stairs. What was weird was that Lily was blindfolded, and she looked like she was going to fall. I worriedly yelled, which startled her. She took off her blindfold and smiled at me. She told me that she was playing hide and seek with Mrs. Knight, and asked me to join her, and promised to let me meet her mysterious friend.
Now we hide, and you seek, okay?
She said, handing me the blindfold. I put it on, then counted from 1 to 10. The sound of pounding footsteps faded away. After that, I left my spot, starting to find her. I guessed that she was hiding in the closet, so I went there to find her. I called her name, then I heard applause from her bedroom as a response. I followed the wall, opened the door, and walked in.
Boo!
I opened the closet, but it was completely silent inside. The sound of clapping by my ears made me jump. My heart suddenly beat so fast.
Mommy?
Lily called me. I quickly took off my blindfold and ran towards her.
Why don't you go find me?
She looked at me reproachfully.
I thought you were hiding in the closet.
I explained.
So you found Mrs. Knight?
She seemed surprised. I was a little startled, but before I could react, she pulled me and said,
This time, Mrs. Knight will find. We must hide carefully.
After she finished talking, she giggled, and while counting, she pulled me out of the room. I hid in the kitchen and waited anxiously, but still no one came looking for me, only the sound of footsteps outside the living room. It was Lily's voiceless scream. I quickly jumped out. The scene in front of my eyes terrified me. A tall person was carrying Lily on her shoulder. I realized it was Mrs. Knight in Lily's picture. My daughter screamed and struggled. I panicked. Without thinking much, I pushed the woman down. Only then did I see her face. I was terrified. Her face was full of crimson scars that huddled together. Especially her eyes were red, and her lips were mixed with the scars, revealing only a wheezing hole. She went crazy, pushed me down to the floor, and rushed to strangle me. Lily stood beside her, begging, but she squeezed even tighter. I struggled and grabbed a hard object on the floor, quickly hitting the woman on her head. When she stepped back, I hugged Lily and ran into the small storage room, locking the door. The woman screamed and banged on the door repeatedly. I was afraid to hug Lily in my arms, trembling to dial 911. The woman couldn't open the door, so she left. Before I could breathe in relief, I smelled gasoline, then burning. Smoke began to pour in from the outside. Soon, the room was filled with smoke. I tried to hug Lily tightly, hoping she wouldn't breathe in the smoke. I could feel myself fading away. At the same time, I heard police sirens outside. Mrs. Knight was arrested while holding a gas can. Turns out it was a man with a mental illness. He used to be the owner of the house. Mrs. Knight had a 5-year-old child and loved her very much. But after discovering that she wasn't his, but his wife and her lover, he went mad and set the house on fire. The fire killed his wife and daughter and burned his entire face. According to the police, he had been living in our house for a month. I shuddered to discover that it was around the time when we moved in. Then I recalled the memory of the woman, the sparks of fire in Lily's painting, and the name Mrs. Nightfriend. And I suddenly realized that day was the same day when he set the fire a few...
In New York, it's difficult. I've searched all the forums and hunted down every street, but still couldn't find a decent place for less than $3,000. Just when I felt my luck was running out, I came across an advertisement that to me was a bargain. The building is located on the edge of the city and not many people pass by it. That apartment is on the ground floor with a bedroom, a kitchen, and a tiny living room. The only thing that I don't like about the apartment is the pile of weird furniture left by the previous owner. The curtains, lanterns, wall decorations, or even the sofa sets all look old and discolored. I once tried to sit on the leather chair, and to be honest, the feeling of it is so strange, cold and slippery. What's worse, they all smell like the disinfectant you could smell at the hospital.
Is the previous owner a creep or something?
When thinking about the workload and money I have to spend on redecorating the apartment. For the first few weeks, I simply put a mattress in the middle of the house to sleep since the moving process cost me a bundle. One day, I was so exhausted that I fell asleep immediately as soon as I laid down on my back. I don't know what time it was, but when I woke up, it was already dawn. My whole body was drenched in sweat. I was so weak that I couldn't feel my own breath. The nightmare was so real. I saw dozens, sometimes even countless dark figures with distorted, disgusting faces surrounding me. They clung to me. I was in a complete state of panic, yet I couldn't make a sound.
What the heck was that?
I thought it was all just a dream, but deep down, I know it's more than that. Whenever I lie down and am about to sleep, that dream comes back and haunts my night. The only way to get rid of it is keeping myself awake all the time. After 1 week, I felt like I had sleep paralysis. Sometimes, I see a disfigured woman in a white dress, always standing at the end of my bed. She kept squealing shrill screams and scratching herself. Sharp black fingernails continued to expose the flesh, and drops of blood dropped to the floor. The drops of blood are not the usual red color, but they are black and have a foul odor. Still, sweat broke out my body, but I couldn't move. Then, I noticed the woman pointing to the corner of the house, then repeated the action a few times before disappearing. What? There's nothing wrong with that house. The contract is clear. No rent refunds. After that, the owner hung up on the phone. So that's it. I can't get out of here soon. I decided to pour the rest of my money to eliminate the creepy vibe of this apartment. Room makeover is such a hard task. I had to move furniture all the way to the center, remove curtains, strip floors, and repaint walls, and so on. One evening, after peeling off the bedroom carpet, I discovered a broken piece of wood on the floor. So I carefully removed them, and I saw a small notebook with different names and dates. That looked so old and dirty. Curiosity got the best of me. I Google one of those names, and the results bring goosebumps to all over my body. A bunch of old news articles about a missing person popped up. The name and date of the disappearance of that person and all others perfectly match what's written in the notebook.
Oh my god, what is it?
I trembled with fear. Could it be? Could it be? The previous owner killed all of these people? I rushed out of that damned apartment and headed to the nearest police station I could find. The police then told me what I found might be the clue connecting the mysterious disappearances together. So they sent out the crime scene team. I was only allowed to stand outside the door when they investigated the house. Suddenly, I overheard one text saying,
"Yup, it's human." Human? What's human?
And here's what I got.
"Sir, have you thrown any furniture in this apartment? We need to collect all of them."
When my brain processed the information, he continued,
"The curtains, lanterns, and everything here are made of human skin. All were probably peeled off from the missing..."
I could feel nothing but blind terror. Could it be all those dark figures with terrible shapes were the missing people the police said? Could it be that girl in the white dress scares me every night was one of them? No, 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 no.
Can even bring danger to a whole plane. Well, I witnessed that once, and I don't want that nightmare to happen a second time. It was a summer day in June. After a year of hard work, I decided to treat myself to a trip to Hawaii. Traveling alone was something so fun, especially when you're an introvert. I checked in just in time to board the plane. When finding my seat, I was annoyed to see someone sitting there already. Some minutes later, the flight attendant approached and asked me to settle down, so I had to walk over to my seat.
Excuse me? I think this is my seat. But I don't like to sit near the window, so I prefer this one. But the seat is on the ticket. I don't think we can change, but I don't want to change it. Any problems?
Because of her loud voice, everyone turned back and looked at me. I was so embarrassed that I forced myself to sit near the window. After the plane took off, that woman took off the mask, while the flight attendant asked everyone to wear masks during the flight.
Hey, why did you take off the mask?
She glared at me with red eyes.
What's the matter? Why are you so nosy? Never mind.
But then I decided to report this.
Can I go to the bathroom for a bit?
The woman reluctantly said.
What a disturbing thing.
I moved out and went across the restroom to the cabin. I wanted to inform the flight attendant about the woman's behavior. That made me very uncomfortable. After listening to my report, the flight attendant went to talk to her. But you think that was all? Not so easy. The Karen yelled.
I just took off my mask for a snack. Is there any need to be so strict?
Then glared at me. The flight attendant turned to me.
Is that true?
I hesitated for a moment, then shook my head slightly. The flight attendant looked at the woman.
Would you mind putting the mask back on now? But is it a big deal? I only took off my mask for 1 minute. Why are you so unreasonable? But it's the rules, so I ask you to strictly follow it. Do you want me to die? With the mask on, how can I breathe properly? I'll sue you! Madam, I ask you to sit down and stay calm, and then put on your mask.
The woman suddenly grabbed the flight attendant by the collar.
I don't like masks! Can you understand it?
I stood up and tried to stop her, but to no avail. The woman then pushed the flight attendant aside.
What would you do to me?
The other people seemed so panicked. The woman got her face close to the attendant. She seemed so mad. Then she suddenly turned around and pointed at me.
You're the one who did this!
She rushed over to me and picked me up by the neck. I was so scared, I could hardly breathe. My whole body was drained of strength.
It's you!
The woman then pushed me down on the seat and took my mask off. Fortunately, at that moment, the flight attendant appeared in time and tied her up with duct tape. With the help of another flight attendant, they tied the woman to the chair and dragged me out. My whole body was shaking, my heart was still beating fast, and I felt short of breath even though the flight attendant kept reassuring me. After the plane landed, the police quickly showed up. The woman kept screaming at them and ended up being handcuffed off the plane. Well, it was the scariest flight of my life, and now every time I see someone like that woman, I get chills. I wish you a happy traveling season, and to never get into the same situation as I did.
When I was a kid, I used to love playing games, especially Minecraft. I never knew that one day Minecraft would ruin my entire life. This story happened 10 years ago, when I was only 15. No, it must be him! It must be him! It must be him! My brother is the one who brought Minecraft to my life, and since we were extremely close, he left his PC at home after moving to college. That night, my parents went to visit my grandmother, so I stayed home alone and played Minecraft with my two best friends, Kai and Evan. Evan and Kai were inviting me to play survival mode. That's strange. I don't want to play this mode because joining unknown servers holds its own risk. But in the end, I joined them anyway. A few minutes later, Kai sent me the link. I clicked in immediately and was led to a large room with 10 other gamers. Oh, Kai and Evan are here. For some reason, I felt relieved when I saw my friends. The game began, and we spread out in different directions. I started building a shelter while Kai and Devin gathered stones for a furnace. Everyone was doing their gameplay except one player. This guy named his character First Creeper, and he didn't do anything. He just stood like a statue right next to me and just followed me around. When I moved, he moved. When I stopped, he stopped. Who the hell is this? I was feeling irritated, so I asked in the chat box. Guys, who is the First Creeper? That freak just follows me without doing anything. Must be some pathetic guy, I guess.
I don't give a shit. Just get back to the game.
I didn't know if that guy could read it, but when I went back to the game screen, First Creeper disappeared. We played Minecraft for hours. When the clock struck 12, it was already dark in Minecraft. Evan was nowhere to be seen, and Kai hid in the shelter while I drifted apart to collect wood. 5 minutes passed. I started to run in the direction of the shelter because I was scared of the zombies. I kept running, but strangely enough, I couldn't find the shelter. Am I lost? So I texted in the chat, Kai, Evan, you there? But no one answered, so I texted them again. Did you guys leave me alone? A new message popped up, but instead of Kai or Evan, that First Creeper guy replied, You're not alone. I shivered and checked at the game screen immediately, but still found myself standing alone. So I went back to the chat. Only then did I find out that everyone was either dead or out of the game, except for the three of us and this First Creeper guy. Kai? Evan? I know you guys are around. Answer me. Still, my friends didn't reply. Don't search for them. It's useless. I've already killed them all. I thought this was a joke because apparently Kai and Devin were still alive. Just right then, I noticed on the chat box to see Kai died, then Evan. See? And now I just need to kill you, and the game will be over. At this point, I got so frustrated that I couldn't ignore this guy. Then where the hell are you, First Creeper? And he said, I'm after you. Believe it or not, his answer gave me goosebumps. My heart rate increased, so I turned back to check. The room was empty. There's no one but my cat lying on the bed licking her fur. I called Kai and Devin but got no answer. I didn't wait to listen to this crazy guy, so I quit the game. Phew, what a freak. I went to bed and called it a day. About an hour later, I was woken up by the buzzing phone. Hello? It was my brother. He almost shouted into the phone. Are you at home? I lazily replied, Yeah, where else can I go at this hour? For some unknown reason, he was silent for a moment. Then he said in a shaky voice, Then why did the alarm go off? There's no sound of the alarm going off. What are you saying? Then he paused as if to reassure me, saying, You need to hide. I just got notified. Someone broke into our house. I was in a complete state of panic. God, is that the first creeper name from earlier? How could he find my address? Did he track my IP? Did he come here to kill me to win the game? At that moment, I could hear heavy footsteps rushing towards the door of my room. I sprung out of bed. In my room, there's nowhere to hide. I frantically dialed 911. I could hear someone pass through the toilet, my parents' room, and stop in front of my door. With no other choice, I grabbed my baseball bat and hid behind the door. Please don't come in. Please don't come in. Please don't come in. I stood there and prayed, but then the door burst open. I held my breath and stood as still as a statue. Whoever he was, he just stood there for a while. Apparently seeing no one, he slowly closed the door. But suddenly, my cat made a sound and pointed her head to where I was hiding. This is it. I can feel the door opening again. And he slowly poked his head inside. Just a little more. A little more. God, his head is so green. It's the first creeper guy in Minecraft. Ah! Like an animal, I grabbed the baseball bat and hit him on the head with all my might. I don't remember how many times I hit him, but I saw that guy fall down. Blood was flowing from his body, splattering everywhere. Huff, ha, huff, ha, ha, I'm the winner. It took me a while to calm down, but God, that guy didn't seem to be the first creeper. He looked more like a person wearing casual clothes, but wearing the mask of the character. I peeled off the mask off the first creeper. Lying in the middle of a pool of blood was an 18-year-old young man, glaring his dead eyes at me. Half his head was almost crushed. Brother?
Oh, shit!
Welcome to Hawaii.
Chloe put a white shell necklace on me and kissed me on the cheek. Wow, it's so beautiful. Thank you. Then I was taken to a motel near the center. It was strange to see that the place was pretty quiet even in the traveling season.
The guests are all gone for sightseeing,
Chloe explained. The daughter of the motel owner, Chloe, was confident that she knew the island very well. She wanted to be my tour guide, and I said yes. So we took a tour in Hawaii, to the traditional market for some cuisine, and then to Waikiki Beach.
Where are you going?
I'm thirsty. I'm going to buy some water.
Let me go with you.
Well, okay. I found it a bit odd when Chloe tried to stay near me all the time. She even followed me to the bathroom door. Well, you don't have to follow me all the time, you know.
No, you are a special guest.
Then we met Chloe's boyfriend, Kai. As soon as Kai saw me, he shook my hand, hugged me, and kissed my cheek in the Hawaiian tradition. Aha! Welcome to Hawaii, my friend. Kai patted me on the back as if we had known each other for years. So Kai and Chloe took me around together. I was probably walking too fast or something, but the two of them kept falling behind my back. After a day on the streets, I felt quite tired, so I wanted to get back to the motel. But unexpectedly, Kai and Chloe came along.
We have to make sure you're okay.
You're a special guest. Well, thank you very much. Kai behaved so weird. He wasn't angry even when seeing Chloe laughing and getting close to me. Getting back to my room, I took a shower and then decided to go outside for a breeze. However, when I walked to the door and looked through the peephole, I was startled. What's wrong with them? I felt uncomfortable, so I opened the door. Hi, is there something wrong? No, not at all.
Actually, we wanted to invite you to the beach party.
Oh, I was reading into it. Wow, I'd love to. I was watching the pictures when there was a knock on the door. It was Kai and Chloe.
It's time.
Chloe handed me a glass of red wine. It'll bring you luck. Oh, this is so strong. I was surprised, and not until they both stood up and stared at me did I feel dizzy. There was something in the cup of wine. Before I completely passed out, I saw Chloe and Kai grin evilly. When I woke up, still a bit dizzy, I found myself tied to a pillar and Chloe busy doing something. She said something to Kai and he turned to me. Although I was scared, I pretended to faint to find a chance to escape. I listened to the conversation between the two and couldn't help but shiver. Were they planning for a sacrifice? Then my life would be at stake. When Kai untied the rope to bring me to Chloe, I quickly bit his ear. Kai screamed in pain and pushed me aside. I took that chance to run away. No time to see the direction. I just followed the small path and ran into the forest. While running, I could still hear Kai chasing from behind. The more I was scared, the more I tried to run, not daring to stop even for a second. I didn't dare to stop running until making sure they stopped chasing. Where was I right now? In front of me was a corpse tied to the tree. On its neck was a white shell necklace that looked exactly like the one Chloe had given me. It reminded me of the strange feeling I had when arriving at the motel. The feeling of being completely deserted.
They've all gone out for sightseeing.
Only now did I understand what kind of sightseeing Chloe was referring to. Suddenly, Kai appeared in front of my eyes and pushed me to the ground. He rushed to grab my neck. I was so scared, panicked, and struggled. And in the moment when I thought I was about to suffocate, I, fortunately, grabbed a stone. I used all my strength to hit him on the head. He screamed in pain to let go of me. I immediately ran away. No longer seeing any of them behind, I kept running down the small path until finally escaping the forest. I want to tell you a story about my last working day as a teacher. A horrible day that gives me goosebumps every time I think about it. It was 11 in the morning. I was teaching literature in the class. The students were sitting lazily. They didn't seem to listen at all. I got out of class and went to the bathroom. While I was washing my face after a long morning, suddenly the loudspeaker sounded.
Attention! There is a maniac with weapons in the school. Everyone, stay in your classroom, lock the door, and do not come out until getting further notice.
As soon as the bell rang, I rushed back to the classroom and locked the door.
Oh, dear. Did you all hear the announcement? No one is allowed to leave the classroom.
But Lizzie exclaimed,
Miss, I want to go to the bathroom.
Oh no, not now, honey. Can you hold on for a while?
But I don't think I can hold it any longer.
Lizzie pouted.
Okay, let me think. Oh, all right now. You'll run as fast as you can to the bathroom. And after you've done, come back. Knock on the door 3 times. 1 long and 2 short, like a code. Understand?
Lissy said with an annoyed face.
Yes, I'll do as you said. Can I go now?
Okay, be careful.
I unlocked the door for Lissy to get out. While we were waiting, other students started whispering and making jokes.
I've seen it in the movies. Maybe they're just pretend, like a rehearsal, you know? No fool would run into the school.
I told all of them.
Students, this is no joke!
And showed them the message from the principal. Suddenly, the atmosphere became quiet. 10 minutes passed, and I started to worry. Suddenly, the fire alarm went off.
Oh, why has Lizzie not come back?
Suddenly, there was someone knocking on the door 3 times. Exactly the code I told Lissy. I was about to open the door.
But teacher, what if it's not Lissy?
It was Dave, the class monitor.
Are you sure it's Lissy?
What are you talking about? Only Lizzie knows the code.
Actually, I was afraid it wasn't Lissy too.
If it were someone else, we might be killed.
But if it's the real Lizzie, we can't just leave her out there. But just to be sure, maybe.
And then I turned toward the classroom door and whispered,
"Oh, Lizzie, can you raise your hand up to the classroom window so that we can be sure?"
Immediately, I saw a raised hand, and it was Lissy's. I saw her pink polished nails, so I unlocked the door. But that was not Lissy, or at least it was not Lissy who knocked, because she was now a corpse in a man's arms. Hello, teacher. I'm Lissy. The man imitated Lissy's voice. All the students screamed. My whole body froze. The psycho then dropped the body on the ground and said, "Teacher, I'm back," and thrust the knife at me. I fell on the ground while my students shouted louder. Just when he was about to pick up the knife and stab me in the face, I raised my hand to stop him. The knife went through my hand. Blood splashed on my face. The madman took the knife out of my hand and Dave jumped out, grabbing the chair and hitting the madman on the head. He fell over but immediately got up.
How dare you, little brat!
He lunged at Dave, stabbing him in the shoulder with the knife.
Let me go!
I was in so much pain that I couldn't stand up to help my students. All the others were too frightened. They huddled in a corner and did not dare to protest. But when looking out the window, I suddenly had a crazy idea.
The classroom is on the 2nd floor. Maybe jumping down from here won't kill me. Then I could go to the police to rescue my students.
So while the psycho was being held by Dave, I tried to move towards the classroom window, and after an inhale, I jumped down. But before I could do anything else, I fainted from the excessive blood loss from the wound on my arm. I woke up in the emergency room. The police reassured me that the other students were safe. The police arrived after that and soon controlled the psycho, but they could not save Dave. What a bad teacher I am. If I hadn't let Lizzie go to the bathroom, things would have been different. If you were me in that situation, what would you have done? But I know and remember exactly what I have been through. More than 20 years have passed. The memory of the strange parade still haunts me, even in my sleep. July 4th, 20 years ago, my parents and I went to my father's brother's house in the suburbs, which took us 4 hours of driving. I was overwhelmed by the gorgeous view of the street. I even saw the colorful antique cars ready for the parade.
Where are the parade people from?
I asked my cousin, Claire.
I don't know.
Claire shrugged. I noticed that the cars were moving into the forest.
I wonder where they'll go after the parade.
Not waiting for Claire to answer, I ran after the convoy into the forest.
Max! Max! Wait!
Ouch! Suddenly I slipped and fell. Claire helped me get up. and the two of us kept chasing after those people. Claire and I ran into the forest, but when we got deeper, all the colorful cars had disappeared, as if they had evaporated.
Where are they?
I turned to Claire, but was surprised to find out that she too had disappeared.
Claire?
I panicked and called her name, but all I received was silence.
Claire? Where are you?
There was no reply. The many noises of the parade resounded in the air. Peeking through the foliage, I saw a man in a strange outfit, looking like Uncle Sam. He was very tall and skinny. His head swayed, then slowly moved in front of me.
Happy 4th of July.
He greeted me in a hoarse voice.
Who are you?
A little scared, I stepped back.
Are you looking for Claire? The little girl has already joined us. Follow me.
He was like a robot. After finishing his sentence, he quickly turned away. I couldn't wait to see Claire, so I followed the man. The sight before me made my eyes widen in surprise. That was the parade in the town earlier, but the people looked very strange. They were like a circus troupe, and even though they were all dressed in festive costumes, their bodies were in many different shapes. Some were tall and raw-boned, some were terribly fat, and some had a super crooked gait. The only thing they had in common was their black eye sockets and lifeless faces.
Happy 4th of July. Come and join us.
One man handed me a strange flag and hat. At that moment, I was hypnotized. For a second, I forgot about Claire and just unconsciously kept following those strangers. As the procession passed through a cemetery,
ouch!
I suddenly tripped. That brought me back to my senses to see Claire right in front of me. She was in a weird dress, just like the crowd. I pushed my way through the crowd and walked over to her.
Hey, Claire!
I called.
Claire!
I patted her shoulder again, but she seemed to ignore me. I panicked and pulled Claire away. The others immediately turned their heads to chase after us. I was scared to death, tears welling up in my eyes. I didn't know what to do but pull Claire and run as fast as possible. After running a while, I was so tired that I stopped.
Claire, are you okay?
Claire's face terrified me. Her two eye sockets were like a black hole.
Claire!
I cried and shook Claire, but she didn't sober up.
You joined them!
A shiver went down my spine. Poor Claire.
Join us! Join us!
The strange people still chased right after us, especially the man in the strange hat who kept shouting those words. I was too terrified, so I left Claire to run away. I didn't stop until I saw a glaring light. I used all my strength to get there. When I woke up, I found myself lying on the bed. Adults said that they found me panting in front of the forest. Perhaps I had bumped into something. When I asked about Claire, everyone looked at me with puzzled expressions. "There is no Claire," my uncle said. This almost drove me crazy. I obviously had a cousin named Claire, and together we followed the parade into the woods, even taking part in the bizarre procession. Even though I kept insisting her existence, they still didn't believe me. They assumed that the story about Claire and the strange parade was purely my imagination.
She joined them.
This morning, the body of the mayor's son was found brutally murdered at the Burger King. The killer's identity has not yet been determined. The mayor vowed to make the murderer pay for his crime.
Kyle worked the day shift at a Burger King drive-thru outside the town, and his girlfriend worked the night shift. As usual, Kalia arrived a little early to help her boyfriend clean things up. When Kalia came back after throwing the trash, she saw two shadows appearing behind Kyle. From the dim light inside the counter, she knew it was her ex, Jordan, and his friend. They were both holding weapons, slowly approaching without Kyle even knowing. On the contrary, when Kyle realized his girl was heading toward him, he smiled and waved at her.
Watch out!
Kalia waved in panic to sign Kyle as the men were approaching him, but he assumed that it was just a simple wave. Kyle got choked and fell to the ground. Kalia was scared to death. She ran to the counter hurriedly and frantically. The closer she was, the more terrified she got. Jordan repeatedly hit the hammer on Kyle's body. The sound of the hammer mixing with his cry broke the stillness.
You bastard! How dare you steal my Kalia! You have to pay for this!
He shouted. The friend couldn't even see this, but Kalia had seen it all from the outside. Her eyes were wide open, tears were falling, but her whole body was stiff, too scared to move. Jordan's friend saw her, immediately rushed to the window.
Get her!
Jordan shouted. She was caught and tied to a chair. The friend held her head and kept her eyes open. They made her see everything. They cut Kyle's flesh into small pieces and threw all of them into the blender.
No! Please!
Kalia desperately cried and screamed. Then after a while, she got panicked and passed out in the laughter of Jordan and his friend. Kalia woke up from the nightmare. She was choked in the pain caused by the horrifying memory. Her heart was broken when she knew Jordan wasn't brought into account after murdering Kyle because his father was the mayor. Pain and resentment turned into hatred, and Kalia decided to avenge Kyle. After coming back from the hospital, Kalia locked herself in to learn how to access the dark web from a friend. She wanted to find a supporter for her plan. Her whole body trembled when she saw a video titled "Meat for the Kings" appeared on the screen, showing Jordan eating Kyle's meat in a bun. Her heart broke into pieces once again. She has to kill that monster. Then she finally found someone to help. It was a site named Vengeance Spirits. When Jordan was at the gas station next to the Burger King, he was drugged and taken away by a man wearing a black hoodie and mask. Jordan slowly revived from consciousness, found out he was strapped to a chair inside the Burger King drive-thru where he tortured Kyle. His friend was strangled to death, eyes bulging, mouth gaping. Jordan still had no idea what was going on. He frantically tried to untie the rope. Kalia stepped out from the darkness. Behind her was a man dressed in black with a mask. In Kalia's hand was a sharp knife. You! He started to panic when he saw her. Jordan screamed in pain as the masked man slammed the hammer down his leg. Then Kalia repeated what Jordan did to Kyle, giving him exactly 23 hammer blows to his stomach, chest, and head, then using a knife to cut a piece of meat on his thigh. Jordan screamed, tears streaming down his face, too much pain to say a word. Kalia brought the bun containing the thigh meat and stuffed it into his throat.
Meat for the kings.
Kalia laughed creepily. Jordan's mouth was stuffed with the burger, and there was only a faint humming from his throat. The whole process was filmed by the masked man. as Kalia requested.
After the investigation, police found human flesh inside the victim's stomach. It seems like the poor man was forced to eat his own flesh, and the murderer's identity probably will never be found.
In front of the TV, Kalia laughed like crazy. She took a bite from the burger with red meat.
Yuck.
She spat it out and threw the burger to the ground.
Karen arrived home at 3 a.m. The weekend business trip drained all of her energy. Even so, Karen still got up early to make breakfast for Anderson, her fiancé. For her, a sandwich and a morning cup of black coffee was a great compensation for the time away from home. As usual, Anderson was dressed in a neat suit and sat cross-legged in an armchair in the center of the living room. He is handsome, reserved, and has his own rules. Reading the morning newspaper was an example. Regardless of weekdays or Sundays, the first thing he does is always reading the newspaper, especially in recent days when there has appeared more and more missing people in the local area. Is anything new? Karen asked, placing the coffee cup in front of Anderson. Police have confirmed all the missing cases are related. They were all young girls found dead in their 23s. My age range, huh? Karen thought, with a shiver. Anderson, still focused on the newspaper, ignoring her expression, he added, "Oh, and all the murderers have something in common. They lost their teeth. How on earth can there be such sick people?" The cases usually happen around 6 to 7 p.m. when everyone is on the way from work. The last victim was found dead on Sunday, the day Karen was on a business trip. Maybe if Karen wasn't away that day, the victim would be her too. Except for the sick murderer, no one knows for sure. Suddenly, the breath on the back of her neck startled her. Anderson had been standing behind her ever since. He hugged her from behind, kissed her cheek, and greeted her at work. All day, Karen couldn't put the images of poor victims out of her mind. She got home at 5 p.m. earlier than usual. Anderson is far from coming. When she got home, Karen went straight to the bathroom. Bubble bath with Epsom salt for a luxurious evening will erase all her troubles. But today is the exception. Despite being immersed in the warm water, Karen can't help but wonder, but why teeth? In such a chaotic situation like this, you never know when you would be targeted by the perverted killer. That scared Karen. Fear fluttered in her stomach, but at least she had Anderson, a fiancé who would protect her at any cost. Thinking like that, she calmed down a bit to start enjoying the evening. The steam from the tub rose up, making her vision and everything sink into illusion. Half an hour passed, and Karen noticed something was off today. Karen didn't know why, but she began to feel pain and discomfort all over her body. There's something unusual in the bathtub today. Salt grains. It's been so long since Karen put them in the tub, yet they didn't seem to dissolve at all. Instead, they poked at her, stinging. Karen reached down to the bottom of the tub, picking up a few seeds to look at. "Oh my God, a tooth!" She panicked, rushed out and flushed the water. Karen felt like she could throw up. All of them are teeth, jagged, covering the tub. Oh no, 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 no. In her 23 years of life, Karen has never felt so scared. At that moment, she heard the entrance door open. Anderson is back. At this moment, Anderson's face this morning flashed through her mind. While he was reading the newspaper, he smiled. A strange, vicious smile.
I'd say the job was not too hard for me. However, the late-night customers were often not easy to deal with. and I met one on my very first time working the night shift. It was a summer evening. I was walking around the stalls, rearranging the items on the shelves. Suddenly, I saw a suspicious woman. She was wearing a huge travel backpack on her shoulder and looking around surreptitiously. It was odd that she just stood there for 15 minutes without buying anything. I felt rather strange, but didn't dare to question or get in trouble on my first day on duty, so I went to the clothing store and rearranged the items there.
Martha, a customer at the frozen meat counter needs help. Get there now.
That was Jonathan, the store manager, observing my job over the radio.
Copy that,
I said back and quickly moved toward there. Surprisingly, the one who needed assistance was the suspicious woman I met earlier. When she saw me approaching, she suddenly left.
How strange. What exactly is she looking for?
I frowned slightly and thought to myself, anyways, I still followed her. As she approached the knife counter, I decided to stop her.
Madam, what are you looking for?
My sudden question startled the woman. She immediately turned to look at me, giving me a forced smile.
I was looking for bread.
Bread? Hasn't she gone back and forth to the bakery a few times?
Bread is over there, in the dairy section.
I felt odd, but smiled and showed her the direction. Instead of saying thanks, she grimaced and left in anger as if I had just done something very rude. Suddenly, just a few aisles away from where I stood, a high-pitched scream rang out. I hurriedly ran over to find that a creepy woman was holding a camp knife and swinging around to scare everyone. She even almost injured a guest.
Jonathan, we're having a problem. Please come over here.
I said over the radio and quickly dialed 911. The woman was still standing there. Her head began to twitch with bloodshot eyes. Her mouth was watering and she was puffing quite hard.
Ma'am, please, put the knife down.
I tried to say in a calm voice, but that woman did not listen. She was still very fierce, her hand firmly grasping the knife.
Ma'am,
I repeated.
Shut up!
The woman shouted, pointing the knife at me. I was so terrified I stepped backward. At that moment, I noticed she kept scratching her neck as she held the knife forward. No one dared to get even one step toward the madwoman.
My baby!
Another woman spoke up. She seemed to be scared to death. The baby carriage was only 2 meters away from the crazy woman. Everyone was so petrified. But then the most unexpected thing happened. The baby in the carriage began to cry intensely.
Shut up! Shut up!
The creepy woman clutched her head and screamed. Then she turned around to see where the crying was coming from. The knife stuck down the item on the counter. Fortunately, Jonathan was able to rush out to push the carriage away and avoid the blade. The woman still seemed angry. She stared at Jonathan with bloodshot eyes.
The police are coming!
I shouted. The woman turned to look at me. As soon as I said that, I trembled in fear and stepped back. The woman with a creepy smile walked towards me. My whole body stiffened, and I couldn't move. Police here! Put down your weapons! The police officer promptly appeared and shouted. The woman stopped and raised her head. She was still breathing heavily, looking madly at the police officer. Put the knife down, he repeated. The woman remained silent. Her eyes turned to look at me. I was so scared that she would aim it at me. I said, put the knife down. The officer said it again. I could see how hard he was trying to stay calm. The insane woman appeared defiant, clutching the knife firmly in her hand. She rushed towards me while raising the knife above her head. The woman fell to the ground, her whole body convulsing, her eyes widening from the electric shock. The officer quickly ran over with the help of several other guests, handcuffing her. I sat on the ground to stare at the madwoman who was taken away. My heart was pounding violently in my chest. After that unpleasant encounter, I became more alert. Whenever I saw a woman with a backpack on her back, the memories of that horrible night just flooded back again. The Game of Chance event at the newly opened Starbucks store downtown. Although Elena and I arrived very early, the area in front of the store was already packed with many people. Everyone wanted to be the lucky owner of the prize, which was a limited edition cup. While waiting for the host, Elena and I each ordered a cup of coffee. It was good as always. After a while, the event started. Dear customers, now it's time for me to draw the name of the luckiest and only guest to own this most beautiful cup. Who will be the lucky one?
That cup will belong to me.
Looking at the cup from afar, I silently wished that my name would be called. If I didn't win it, I thought I would negotiate and buy it back anyway. And today's lucky customer is a guest named E-L-E-N-A! Elena! Please step onto the stage to receive this special cup. Elena jumped for joy. I didn't know why, but while smiling at her, I was also a bit uncomfortable. On the way back, I asked to hold the cup for a second, but what she said got me so mad.
I'll never give it to you, Jade. That would also transfer my luck to you, and I got none left.
I went crazy and told myself that I would do anything to get that cup. At this moment, a truck came from afar. Elena was so happy about the limited edition cup that she didn't even notice. I was about to push Elena away, but in a flash of a moment, I thought about the cup and her arrogance, and so I just glared at her. The car crash sounded right next to my ears. Elena was now under the wheel of a truck. The Starbucks cup rolled out and stopped at my feet. I picked it up.
This has to be mine.
I turned to Elena and then ran off. The ambulance arrived shortly thereafter, but Elena was no longer breathing. After Elena's death, the entire Starbucks cup collection belonged to me.
Elena, if only you hadn't said those words, you wouldn't have taken that.
After moving to a new place and getting rid of Elena, I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. But things didn't last long. That night in my sleep, I heard Elena's voice. I woke up with sweat on my forehead in the dark room alone.
Maybe it was just a nightmare.
I thought to myself and tried to get back to sleep. During the following days, the same nightmare kept coming. I just closed my eyes and Elena's image appeared. After a few days of insomnia, my eyes were dark. I had to keep taking sleeping pills to get a full night's sleep, but nothing changed. That night, when I fell asleep after taking some medicine, the image of Elena appeared outside the door.
Chicky, you tried to push me. Have all of those cups. Give me back.
I tried to sit up but couldn't move. I struggled in despair. Elena squeezed my throat tighter. Just when I was about to suffocate, I was able to get up. During that night, I was so scared that I couldn't sleep anymore. The next morning, I collected all of Elena's cups and took them home to her parents. I wanted to tell them everything about how I knew the truck was coming but did nothing. But before I could say anything, Elena's mother cried and told me how Elena wanted to give me the cup for my birthday to surprise me.
Oh, Elena.
After hearing Elena's mother's words, on the way back home, my mind went blank. Suddenly, in front of my eyes was a girl holding a Starbucks cup with a happy face. Crossing the street, a high-speed truck was coming from afar. I didn't think much before screaming out and then running to push the girl away. But before I passed out, the last image was Elena's face smiling.
There was a rumor. No matter what you do, or what your purpose is, never stay at a Chuck E. Cheese till the 5th night. Because if you do, you will go crazy or even die for no reason.
Nonsense! Stephen laughed at the story. He thought this rumor was stupid.
So, are you still gonna take the job?
The manager asked. Yeah, Stephen shrugged.
Remember, after checking the electrical system, you better go back to the security room. Don't stay outside for too long,
the manager said while handing the keys to Stephen before leaving. On the first day of work, Stephen tried to show himself as a responsible employee. The first duty was to check the electrical system. Chuck E. Cheese at night was so damn quiet. The dim light made it hard for Stephen to see things clearly, so he had to use the phone's flashlight. Well, it's broken. Stephen flicked on the broken light switch in the hallway. Then he decided to go to the electrical system room through the dining table area. How did it get here? Stephen was surprised to see the mascot of Charles standing in the corner of the room. He then pushed it to the backstage. After checking the electrical system, Stephen returned to the security room. So boring. He leaned on the chair, sipping hot coffee and looking at the security camera. Here came the very first nuisance. What the hell? Stephen noticed a guy in uniform sweeping the arcade. Hey, it's late. Stop cleaning. You can do it tomorrow, Stephen said over the microphone. But that man ignored his words. Hey! Stephen lost his patience. Damn it! He said angrily and decided to walk over to the arcade. Did you hear what I said? He mumbled. But when Stephen got there, the arcade was empty. There were only the game machines covered with dust in the corner. Lucky for you. Stephen went back to the monitoring room, thinking that the man had finished his job and left. This light work really bored Stephen. Even though he had finished a cup of coffee, he still couldn't resist the sleepiness. So Stephen closed his eyes and fell asleep quickly. The first 4 nights had passed peacefully. And soon came the 5th night. Stephen continued his boring job, walking around the store, checking the electrical system and locking all of the doors. Then he returned to the security room and turned on the cameras one by one. Each area appeared in sequence on the screen. The cleaning staff in the arcade, restroom, play area, all silent at night.
You don't need to walk around. Just stay in the security room tonight.
Stephen suddenly was reminded of the manager's words. But he had been on duty for 4 nights in a row and didn't see anything dangerous, Stephen thought while clicking to view the camera. Ah! Oh, shoot! Stephen was startled when he saw Charles's face covering the entire screen. Who the hell did this? Stephen angrily went to check the dressing room. But when he got there was no one in the dressing room. All animatronics were gone. What the hell? Stephen returned to the stage to check, but there was nothing either.
Hi, player! Are you ready for the fun night?
Stephen, startled, looked around.
Hey, this isn't funny at all,
he shouted.
It's time for the hunt night!
The room turned red with the deafening alarm bells ringing. Stephen covered his ears. The sound hurt his head so badly. He quickly ran towards the door but was stopped by Charles the mouse, which held a bloody axe in its hand. Stephen panicked and ran off to the other side. The dark corridor was lit by the dim flashlights. Stephen ran in panic. The heavy footsteps with the evil laughter of Charles and the other mascots were right behind him. Ellen the chicken threw the axe but missed him. He kept running away. Stephen was now hiding in the dressing room among the dusty and furry mascots. He tried to breathe softly so those horrible things wouldn't find him. Heavy footsteps resounded in the air along with eerie laughter. Those creatures were very close, and they were hunting Stephen. The animatronic's attention was drawn to the wardrobe, so they slowly approached. There was no one inside. Stephen managed to escape the dressing room before the robots found him. He panicked and ran towards the exit, but it was locked.
Damn it!
Stephen ran to the security room again, but no matter how hard he tried, the door wouldn't open.
No, please God, no!
Stephen muttered desperately. Stephen kept running away, but this time the robots blocked all the aisles. They came closer and closer. While panicked Stephen slowly stepped back, he suddenly hit something. That was Charles the mouse.
No!
The hunting night ended and a new day came. The mascots returned to the backstage, closing their eyes again as if nothing had happened.
The police have recorded a total of 4 brutal murders in the past week. The common pattern in those cases is that the victim's head was cut off and brought away. Police are expanding their inquiry.
Mommy, can you stay home today?
Those words raised in Avery a sense of guilt for making her own daughter worry. She kissed the kid on the forehead.
Be good. Stay at home and take care of your sister. I'll come home early today, I promise.
Then the mother left home and began her workday. Avery was an Uber driver. That was a busy day, and she had to spend almost all day on the road. Very soon it was getting dark. There was a shortcut, a small path through the forest, which Avery always took to get home faster. When she just passed through the long tunnel, the Uber application informed her about a booking customer. But anyhow, she didn't accept this ride because she promised her little daughter to get home as soon as possible. It was past 11. Avery pressed the gas pedal. Lowering the window, she enjoyed the cool breeze on her face. When she just passed through the long tunnel, the Uber application informed her about a booking customer. In a moment of carelessness, Avery was startled when someone jumped out of nowhere in the middle of the road. She instinctively hit on the brake. The car lost control, and everything turned upside down.
Oh God, did I hit someone?
Avery was frightened. She tried to strain her eyes to see clearly, but there was no one on the street. Suddenly, she saw an arm from the outside reaching into the car and grabbing her shirt. The bloody hand was shaking so badly. Then a man showed up. It was the man who jumped out into the middle of the road.
Let me in.
Gosh, his whole body was covered in blood. His clothes were like rags. Perhaps this was because Avery hit him with the car. She quickly unlocked the car door to let the man in. In just a few more miles, Avery's car suddenly shook violently and she had to stop. The passenger also got down from the car to see the problem.
A nail? For God's sake. Doggone it.
Avery's tires, which had been pierced with some sharp spikes, were now flattened. The man standing nearby came up to her and said,
"Well, if you don't mind, I have a toolbox with me. It's in the back seat."
Avery rejoiced slightly. She told the man to check the condition of the tires while she got into the back seat to get the toolbox.
Hope he has pliers,
she told herself while opening his bag. But the moment Avery opened it, she was shocked to look at what was inside. There was a bunch of nails whose shape was exactly the same as the ones embedded in her tires now. Next to it was a bloody axe and a saw blade.
"What took you so long?"
Startled, Avery quickly closed the bag. At the same time, the man got into the front seat and closed the door. She tried to act normal.
I think I should get out of the car and wait for the rescue squad to come.
Avery was surreptitiously dialing 911 and managed to open the car door. The man looked at her, smiling expectantly. That's when she realized the car door was locked. That creepy man, who had been watching Avery in the rear-view mirror, suddenly leaned backward and asked,
"Did you really call the rescue team?"
Avery was startled when she realized the man's face was very close, perhaps inches away from hers. There was something so monstrous in his smile. His wide eyes and jagged yellow teeth made her nauseous.
What do you want? Get out of my car now!
Avery tried to sound calm. The man gasped for breath and said,
"But it's dangerous outside. Don't make me go there. I'm scared."
Then he laughed like crazy while raising his hand forward to strangle Avery. Just then, a dispatcher picked up the phone. Avery was feverish and accidentally touched the speakerphone button.
"It's 911. What's your emergency?"
The man was startled when he heard the voice on the phone. When he was caught off guard for a second, Avery pulled a hammer from the toolbox to defend herself. She used all her strength to smack him on the head, but the hit wasn't strong enough.
Well.
Avery swung the hammer wildly but was soon restrained. The murderer grabbed her hand and snatched the hammer, which made her fall backward. She fell on the toolbox, and all the things inside fell out. It turned out to be a human head, a horrifying scene Avery would probably never forget for the rest of her life. The blood that oozed from it soaked the bag, dirty and pungent. Suddenly, Avery remembered the breaking news earlier.
"So, maybe you found my widow secret. But I don't want you to see it at all. So what should I do now? Tell me."
Please, I'll keep my mouth shut. I swear to God, please let me go.
Avery got even more petrified when she thought about her children. But that cold-blooded killer didn't heed her pleas. He laughed while approaching his prey. And then, hammer blows came crashing down. Her painful scream, overwhelmed by the sound of hammering, tore up the still air in the deep forest. Blood splattered everywhere, and the madman was extremely amused. He was overcome with pleasure watching his victim lying in blood. Avery fainted, tears streaming down her face as she thought of her daughter. Bayside High School prom was one of the most anticipated events of the year. 1 hour or two before the party got started, there were already a long line of boys and girls in splendid costumes in the hall. Stella, arm in arm with Julian, among that line, was about to enter the dancing hall. But suddenly, Stella felt something wrong with her stomach, so she had to go to the bathroom immediately. It took her more than 30 minutes to get better. Angrily cursing the lentil stews, Stella fixed her clothes and got out. After she closed the bathroom door, she noticed that it was oddly quiet for a party.
Is the prom over?
When Stella turned around, she was startled by a clown standing at the end of the hallway. He stood still like a statue. Maybe that was just a mascot the school hired for the party. But when she was about to move, the clown suddenly turned around. Stella realized there was a chainsaw in his hand. He stood still like a statue. Stella quickly ran away. At that point, Stella was extremely panicked. She didn't know what to do but just keep running in vain. Stella ran through a few turns, thinking she had escaped, but she was wrong. Another clown was standing right there. He raised his saw overhead. Luckily, Stella dodged. She kept running away. After a while, she managed to hide in a classroom. Just then, another clown appeared in the deep hallway, holding a bat in his hand. He dragged the bat against the wall while walking. The creaky sound made Stella tremble in fear. She bit her lip to stop herself from crying. The clown was standing at the door, right in front of the room where Stella was hiding. He stood there for a few minutes, then left. Stella was still in shock. She didn't know what was going on, nor why they were chasing her. She called Julian 100 times, but he didn't pick up the phone. Stella tried to keep calm and dialed 911.
Please help! There's a bunch of clowns in the school and they want to kill me!
The operator's voice did calm her down a bit. They said the police would arrive immediately, and until that, she had to stay right in the same spot. But the clowns could come at any moment.
I think I should go out and check.
No, Stella, don't.
The dispatcher said. Sure enough, Stella had just stepped out when a clown appeared. The guy aggressively opened the door, but there was no one inside. Stella was scared, her heart pounding like it was going to explode. She ran down the hallway to find the exit. The exit door was locked.
They locked the door!
She cried in panic.
The school is locked down!
She was too disturbed to hear the operator's words clearly. Now the only thing she thought about was to hide from the clowns. She rushed to the hall. It was just a few steps away. Stella could hear the clown's footsteps echoing throughout the corridor. She wiped her tears and pushed open the door, but the scene inside left her petrified. Blood was everywhere, on the walls and the disco balls, on ragged banners and the gorgeous dresses. Bodies were strewn in the cold room. Stella stepped inside. There were no survivors. All her friends were lying motionless on the floor.
Stella? What's wrong?
The operator's voice woke Stella up.
They are all dead!
Stella's voice choked. Her whole body was shaking, and her legs were stuck to the ground. She was so shocked that she couldn't move.
Stella, please make sure you're in a safe place, okay?
Yes.
Stella locked the door, frantically looking for a place to hide while she waited for the police to arrive. However, what Stella expected least was right behind her. She heard the sound of the chainsaw again. When Stella turned around, the last thing she saw was 3 identical clowns. And she, all by herself, in this room full of corpses.
Stella! Stella! After more than 30 minutes, police finally arrived at Bayside High School. The assailants were arrested while fleeing the scene. Regrettably, more than 30 students have all
In this story was put in the same situation, and even though she's a grown-up now, she still remembers what happened that day. 14 years ago, on a sunny Sunday afternoon, Sophia and her mother went to Walmart for some groceries. Since Sophia had done a good job helping her mom with housework, as a reward, Mom would buy her a Barbie school bag. Sophia was so excited that she kept singing until they'd arrived at the parking lot. She was happy every time going to the supermarket. It was time to run and juggle along hundreds of parallel aisles.
Sweetie, you shouldn't be running around like that.
Zoe reminded her daughter before giving her the bag she always wanted.
Thank you, Mommy.
The little girl hugged her mother.
Darling, now go to the play area and stay there while I go buy some fruit, all right?
Zoe led Sophia to the play area.
Remember, just stay here. I'll be right back, all right?
And so there was only happy Sophia left among hundreds of toys of all kinds. While Sophia was looking around, a stranger quietly approached her.
Hello, little friend.
Hi.
Sophia was startled, but still replied in a friendly manner.
Where's your mommy?
Sophia didn't answer, but pointed towards the fruit counter.
So, you're here alone?
This man's voice and appearance started to make her stomach turn. Mom always said to never talk to strangers, so she wouldn't say any other words.
Aw, I'm so sad because I don't have any friends.
Sophia suddenly felt pity for him.
Don't cry. I get it.
Sophia gave the man a candy to comfort him.
Ah, thank you, little friend.
Sophia!
Zoe called out her daughter's name.
I'm here, Mommy.
Seeing that the kid was all right, Zoe turned away, continuing to talk on the phone with customers. When Sophia turned back, the man had already disappeared. The man wasn't really leaving, he was observing. Now he was quite sure that the mother wouldn't be back right away. So he returned to Sophia.
Hey, little friend.
Oh, hi.
Thanks for the candy.
You're welcome.
Hey, little friend, I have something for you. This is a thank you gift.
Sophia looked at the beautiful doll with amusement.
So pretty.
She marveled while stroking the doll. Suddenly, she was grabbed.
Sophia?
Zoe returned and her daughter had already disappeared.
Sophia!
There was no answer. Feeling that something bad might have happened, she panicked and ran out to find her child.
Sophia!
It were as though she vanished.
Oh my God! Sophia! Where are you?
Zoe went from one toy aisle to another, but couldn't see any kids that looked like hers. She started to regret leaving her daughter alone. As soon as she reached the doll stall, Zoe paused. Wasn't that the backpack that Sophia was wearing before? She ran around to ask for help.
Please help me. My daughter is missing.
Most people just ignored her because they didn't know what was going on. Finally, there was a Walmart security guard standing nearby.
Excuse me. My daughter is lost. Please help me.
She cried.
Please, calm down. I will immediately call the security center to find her,
the guard said.
Hurry! Sophia!
Zoe immediately ran like crazy to where she heard her daughter. It seemed that Zoe's cries and Sophia's struggle worked. The man dropped the girl and ran away. Sophia ran towards her mother. Zoe immediately hugged her daughter and couldn't help crying.
I'm scared.
As soon as she met her mother, Sophia quickly hugged her neck.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, honey.
The man was quickly arrested. The incident stirred the media for a while and became a warning for mothers not to let their children play in supermarkets or shopping centers by themselves.
Sweetie, I'm sorry. From now on, I will never, ever let you out of my sight.
The city that never sleeps is probably just too afraid to close its eyes. The House of Death, a famous brownstone off Fifth Avenue, is reportedly terrorized by a whopping 22 ghosts. Shockingly, it became the crime scene of the latest case. As reported, the victims were a man and a girl, believed to be dad and daughter.
Woohoo! Guys, we found our next destination. Here we go, New York City! Phew! Hello, everyone. It's Ben again. The flight to New York was delayed by 2 hours. Anyways, let me show you House of Death, one of the most famous haunted houses in America. Okay, see you guys inside.
Working as a TikTok streamer is not as fun as I expected. I've created content inspired by haunted places, which was supposed to be viral. However, a few months have passed and my channel still only has 1,000 followers. House of Death, please make me shine. I dragged my suitcase inside the house. My plan is to spend the night here.
Okay, guys, I'm in. As you can see, there's dust everywhere. I guess this place was abandoned for a while. I don't know why, but this place gives me chills.
Then, I headed to a room, which appeared to be a bedroom, to set up the lights for tonight's stream. Jesus, this house isn't as scary as it's described on the TV. In this case, I guess I have to use that trick.
Oh, I guess we've got enough people here. Make sure you turn the light off to get the show started. Right. The most recent case happened 10 years ago, but the news actually covered a part of it. I've asked around, and it turns out before the murder happened, a family used to live here. 3 people, in fact. Yes, the news never mentioned the mother, right? From what I heard from the neighbors, that night, they heard the sound of a man screaming. The father? Yes. And then the little girl. Police searched everywhere, but the mother was never found. And the murder weapon was an ice pick. So sure enough, I think the mother murdered her husband and daughter, then killed herself somewhere.
The comment section started to get lively.
Why? Today, we will find out why she did what she did.
Then, more and more commenting. I thought it was because they were excited, but I was wrong.
Guys, you know I'm not scared of this stuff, right?
Just then, a sudden sound in the doorway startled me. It's like something falling to the floor.
Who's that?
I turned around to see no one, so I left my chair and got to the doorway.
Guys, you won't believe what I just found.
I tremblingly showed them what I had just picked up in the hallway. The ice pick.
Okay, guys, it's time we cleared things up.
While everyone was commenting on the ice pick, I set up my tools on the table.
All you need is paper, 2 candles, a lighter, a needle, and a bit of blood from the person who's communicating with ghosts.
I poked my thumb with a needle and squeezed it to get the blood out. Then, I put 2 straight red dots on the A4 paper. Below each dot, I wrote yes, no in red. Next, place 2 candles on top of the 2 dots and light the fire.
I haven't tried this yet, so I don't know how effective it is. But now, we'll start the summoning, shall we?
The number of viewers is increasing, as well as my heart rate is increasing.
Spirit? Spirit? Come here. Spirit? Spirit, are you here?
The screen is flooded with comments. Is there someone behind? I turned around, but there was no sign of anyone.
You guys almost got me.
I don't pay attention to the comments anymore and continue to summon the ghost.
Spirit? 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 Are you here? Oh my god. Did you see that? The yes candle just flickered. This is really happening.
Okay, I have to stay calm and ask questions.
Spirit, you used to live here, right? Spirit, you're 20 years older, right?
So maybe I'm talking to the murdered daughter. I'll keep asking the question.
Spirit, were you murdered in this house? Guys, I've got goosebumps, but I still have to ask the important question. Spirit, you were murdered by your mother, right? So, yeah, I'm talking to that little girl. Now we're going to find out why the mother did it. But first, Spirit, besides you, is there anyone else in this house? And that is your mother? It's her! She's in this house!
Suddenly, the light flickered like crazy. Jesus, this damn house gave me a stroke of fear. But in return, the number of viewers is higher than ever.
What's wrong with everyone? Stop teasing me! There's no one behind! Okay, I'll go check. Wait for 10 seconds. Don't leave the screen. I got you! So this is a prank as a special gift to 1K followers. Thank you all for supporting me the whole time.
I turned to Jane, who was also laughing. Wow, she's such a shameless makeup witch. Even though I knew it was all fake, her makeup was so scary that I didn't dare look her straight in the eye.
Come on, Ben. You have to get used to this. Don't forget to pay me as you promised.
I couldn't focus on Jane's words. All I notice now is the empty table.
Jane, did you hide the ice pick? I've just left it right here.
Jane looked at me bewildered. Just then, her face turned painful. Blood splashed everywhere. Oh my god! Her eye was stabbed by an ice pick from behind. I have to get out of here. Right now!
Receiving calls from viewers of a TikTok streaming video, the police rushed to the crime scene, known as House of Death. All they found is a corpse of a girl. She was stabbed in the eye and died of blood loss. Currently, the TikToker Benjamin is still missing. The police will continue to investigate.
Spirit, is your mother still alive?
Had been always struggling with a list of mental illnesses, but of course I wouldn't blame her, after all she'd done for me. The first year after we got married, our life was like a dream. However, Haley changed when she found out she couldn't have children. She often had trouble sleeping and had to take medicine, yet her condition only got worse, and strange things constantly happened in our house after that. Once, after having the sweet night together, I cuddled Haley to sleep. I don't know how long it had passed. I was woken up by an uncomfortable feeling around my chest. When I opened my eyes, it was pitch black. That's when I realized my face was covered by the pillow, and the one who was pressing the pillow down my face was none other than Haley. It seemed like she wanted to take my life. As the oxygen level gradually ran out, my whole chest tightened and pain invaded my body. I didn't get why my wife was so strong then. I screamed and yanked until I was finally able to get out. "What the heck, Haley?" She kept her gaze in and wandered back to her bedroom. The scary thing is that after such incidents, Haley did not remember anything the next morning. When I told her to change doctors, Haley insisted it was all because the house was haunted. The demons in the house kept commanding her to harm me, and when she disobeyed, they would take over her body. We decided to move to the suburbs. Haley could no longer hear the voice in her head. She was happy and so was I. At the end of October, I had to work away from home for a week. Although Haley was still taking her regular medication, I still wanted her to invite her friends to come over. However, my wife refused. Don't worry, the old Haley was dead. I had to give up and start my business trip. On the 5th day of my business trip, I called to find Haley much worse than usual. I tried to ask, but Haley said, "I'm just tired." The next day and the day after that, I called again, but Haley didn't answer. I called an early flight to make sure she's okay. I arrived in the living room at 11 o'clock at night. Haley was not in the living room. I called everywhere but got no answer. She must be asleep, I thought, as I headed for the stairs. Oh God, my poor wife. To my horror, I found my wife's body hanging from the banister. Under was a note saying, "I'm sorry, but the voice doesn't stop. I have to stop it myself before I hurt you again." I was about to help her down when I realized it was too late. Her neck had been hanging for so long that it stretched a few inches. You probably already know what happened after that. I called 911. It's been a year since Haley died. This might be the right time for my lover, Daniel, to move in. Fake fertility results, swapping sleeping pills, installing a remote control sound system in my home, and a good story that took a lot of work to come up with. All of it worked perfectly, and nobody even doubted. It's all worth it though, as now I can live a long life with the love of my life. Passed away when I was a child. As a teen, I used to stay up way past midnight every night, watching terrifying videos on YouTube. My mom had always emphasized the importance of sleeping well to me and would definitely disapprove of my late-night routine. So I knew that if she caught me at that time, I'd be in big trouble. When I was 16 years old, my peaceful town was in turmoil as some children were suddenly disappearing. But you know, in the countryside, it's normal for kids like us to run away from home for a few days. Facing this news, my mum even grew more and more paranoid. Every night, I'd hear one of them wandering into my room, checking on me. And every night, she always checked on my brother, Daniel, first, and then came to my room. Even though she tried to walk softly, I could hear her footsteps. I'd immediately turn off my light and pretend to be asleep. I heard the door open, and my mother's tiptoe stepped into the room. I wondered if she knew I wasn't sleeping, because often it was only after what seemed like hours before they'd finally leave. The 16-year-old me felt my privacy was violated. However, I didn't dare cough a word because that only confirmed her suspicions. It was Saturday night. My mom got the news that my grandmother had been sent to the emergency room, so she had to leave home that night. Before heading off, she gave me a stern word reminding me to lock the doors and take good care of Daniel, who was so scared of ghosts at that time. She told me she'd be watching through the security cameras to make sure I'd follow that properly. To be honest, I was quite glad that I had the whole evening to watch horror movies. My mother had just left, so I called my friend to bring me the movie, Silence of the Lambs, to watch. A few minutes later, my friend arrived, holding the DVD in hand. I was extremely excited and hurriedly turned on the TV to watch. Meanwhile, my brother Daniel sat next to me coloring. Now it's 10 o'clock, I urged Daniel to go to bed. It took me half an hour to settle him down. I gently closed the door and went to the living room to finish the movie. I couldn't have my mom knowing that I was staying up late, so I did something naive and ignorant, something I'll always regret. I turned off the security cameras. For the next 2 hours, my eyes never strayed from the screen. It was late at night, and the movie gave me goosebumps. Sometimes I feel like someone is standing behind me, but I know it's all made up in my head. Around 12 o'clock, I suddenly heard the door creak from Daniel's room. Maybe my brother got up to drink water. For a while, still not leaving the screen, I called out, "Daniel, are you not asleep yet?" No one answered. Feeling strange, I went to Daniel's room to check. The door was still closing. "Daniel?" I whispered. He didn't reply, but I could see him under the cover. I went back to the living room to finish watching the movie. It was about to reach the climax of the movie when suddenly I felt a strong wind blowing from nowhere. I glanced quickly toward the corner of the room. The main door was unlocked. The strong wind blew it open. Oh my God! This is bad! This is so bad! Could it be? Having a bad feeling, I grabbed the baseball bat and crept up to Daniel's bedroom. "Daniel, are you asleep?" Usually this noise would have woken him up. I knew something was wrong. I turned the blanket over to check. What? Lying in the blanket was not Daniel, but a strange man I had never seen before. He was pale, and his eyes were bloodshot and had huge gaping fangs under them. While I was still motionless in fear, he grabbed my hand and squeezed it. Shocked and panicked, I smacked him on his disgusting face with my baseball bat. I hit him so hard that blood splattered my face, and eventually he had to let go of me. I rushed to my bedroom, locked the door, and called the police. I was so worried about Daniel. I hadn't seen him ever since. Had he been kidnapped? No, I don't want to think about it. My poor Daniel. A few minutes later, the police arrived, and my mother was home shortly after. The stranger was nowhere to be found. All they found were bloodstains on the bed, and Daniel, my dear brother, shivering in the closet. He must have been like me, pretending to be asleep and hiding in the closet as soon as he heard a strange noise at the door. And since I turned off the camera, the police never found him. A few months later, when things had calmed down, I joked with my mother, "I see why you're so worried that you have to check my room every night." My mother looked at me with concern. "What do you mean? I never checked your room after you slept."
And she didn't have a raincoat either. If the rain hadn't stopped, maybe she would have to stay overnight at the store. But she didn't like that at all, because there was a rumor that this store was haunted.
Don't clean the dining room table at 12 o'clock because you might see them.
Baron, a day shift employee, warned Jade so.
Them?
The kids, Jade. Don't you know?
Baron shook his head. 10 years ago, there was a serial murder here, but the killer was never identified. The victims were 5 children. They were dismembered and stuffed in 5 mascots. From then on, their ghosts haunted this restaurant. When the clock pointed to 12, they would appear, started singing, dancing, even breaking furniture.
The corpse stuffed into Charles' mascot is the most mischievous and evil,
Baron suddenly emphasized, which gave Jade a sudden goosebump. However, she signed in the contract for the night shift work, so she couldn't break it.
As long as I don't get there at 12 o'clock, I'll be fine.
But things were out of her expectation. Now it was raining heavily and she was stuck at the restaurant. The worst thing was the weak electrical system here, which made it even more gloomy. She tried to get the story Baron had told that morning out of her mind. The silence inside gave her a minor goosebump. Taking a deep breath, Jade took the mop to the dining table. The strange noise from the stage startled Jade, but when she turned around, there was nothing but 5 animatronics standing motionless on stage. Jade continued to pile chairs on the table. The hum that echoed through the air made Jade shiver. It was the song Out of This World that the animatronics band always performed. Jade looked at the animatronics on stage and assumed they were faulty, so she decided to check them. Jade slowly moved towards Charles the mouse. It stood there motionless with a smile while the humming still resounded.
Rock control to all my friends.
Charles suddenly bellowed out a loud, raspy sound like it was faulty. Its whole body began to convulse with the arms flailing wildly. Its mouth moved, and its eyes blinked rapidly, and the verse it was singing kept repeating, over and over, growing louder and louder. Jade had to cover her ears because of the strange squealing. She panicked and staggered out of the dining table. Jade sat at the counter. She was panting, and her limbs were still shaking from the unexpected encounter. The restaurant was really haunted. She took out her phone and texted her manager to ask for a shift change. But it was almost midnight. He was probably sleeping. On the outside, it was still pouring down, but Jade decided to leave. She quickly put all her things in the backpack. Jade sped up. The more panicked she got, the more quickly she did. She no longer had the courage to go check the electrical system, just using the flashlight on her cell phone to shine the way. After getting out of the counter, she found large footprints on the floor. Its color resembles blood. Those footprints extend from the dining table to the cashier counter. Jade was so scared that her legs were shaking, and she stepped back. Her back just hit something. She slowly rolled her eyes up. Mouse Charles's head gradually appeared from the darkness. It was smiling, and from there, a few drops of liquid splashed on Jade's face. She raised her hands to touch the liquid. Oh my God, that was blood! Jade screamed in fear. She tried to run out of the damn restaurant as fast as she could. The truck was approaching when Jade rushed across the road. The driver couldn't brake in time and crashed into her. Jade was lying under the front of the car, her head and face all crushed, her bones and joints broken. Blood gushed out from her mouth, mixing with the torrential rain. The driver called an ambulance while Jade was dying in pain. Inside the dark corner of the store, Baron and mascot Charles is dazed, his limbs shaking with fear. He just wanted to have a little praying.
It's been so long since I felt this good. Flashed out from my neighborhood.
It's all my fault. I shouldn't have let you make that stupid video. Ryan, please forgive me. No, are you crazy?
Maddie knew Ryan always came up with bizarre ideas, but she never thought it would go this far.
Come on, Maddie. Let's make that video together. Mr. Beast did it too, and look how many views he got. 150 million!
While saying that, Ryan pointed at the screen. Maddie didn't know what to say because she was pretty convinced. Ryan and Maddie are best friends. After finishing high school, they dropped out of college to do YouTube together. Ryan, who has a good look, is the one who would love to be on the screen. However, Maddie is the content creator and also his manager. Maddie sighed, feeling she was about to lose this argument.
Suppose I say yes. Then where do we shoot?
Ryan got so happy hearing that.
I know the place. My buddy, please say yes.
And his look made her fall completely.
Okay, then let's make a plan.
Ryan was overjoyed. He said cheerfully,
"As long as there are no spiders, I'll be fine."
Then, Ryan left,
leaving Maddie with a bunch of paperworks. Looks like Ryan is going out on a date with a girl he just met on Tinder a few weeks ago, Maddie thought. And finally, that day has come. Ryan is the boldest man, Maddie has to admit. Since Ryan wanted to make it as creepy as possible, he decided to take on the challenge at an abandoned cemetery. Although Maddie doesn't believe in ghosts and spirits, this place really gives her shivers. Just like what Mr. Beast did, Maddie and Ryan rented a large glass coffin. Then they hired a crane driver to slowly place it underground. The AC connected directly to the coffin will help Ryan breathe.
Okay, get in.
Maddie told Ryan while having a quick look around to make sure he has enough snacks, water, and bottles to clean. Ryan ducked inside. God, only he has the guts to do this. If it was Maddie, just being in such a narrow space would literally drive her crazy.
Hello guys, 24-hour buried alive challenge. Start!
Then, Ryan excitedly said to Maddie, who was standing dumbfounded at the top,
Buried me alive, Maddie!
Then Maddie started turning on the camera. The thick layer of soil was slowly brought down, soon covering the surface of the coffin. When everything was done, it was already dark.
Can you hear me, Ryan?
Maddie spoke into the radio, checking the signal underground. But Maddie didn't hear anything from Ryan. Then she began to worry.
Ryan, answer me!
Just then, he hastily replied,
Here, I've just peed a bit. What a mess down here.
Maddie told him to keep an eye on the camera.
Don't worry. See you soon.
As it started to rain, Maddie got into the car and lay down to rest. Fatigue quickly hit her, and she slowly fell asleep.
Hello guys, it's been 2 hours and I want to show you this. Can you see that? God, there's so many disturbing animals down here. Since I saw it, you guys will have to see it too. Looks like I just saw something.
When Maddie woke up, it was already dawn. She turned on the walkie-talkie to talk to Ryan so he wouldn't be sad.
Ryan, in case you didn't know, it's already morning.
Maybe he's still sleeping, she thought.
Jesus, you take the challenge to sleep all the time?
Then, Maddie threw the radio away and started her morning. About an hour later, Maddie finished eating an apple and a few sandwiches. At this time, the sun was also shining overhead.
Maybe Ryan's awake by now.
She checked Ryan through the radio again.
Ryan, shouldn't you wake up now?
No one answered.
Ryan, stop your stupid prank.
Still no response. God, could it be? Maddie rushed to the AC area where Ryan's oxygen was provided. The machine is still operating normally. She was relieved, but still worried.
Ryan, if you don't answer, I will dig you up immediately and the challenge will end.
1 minute. 2 minutes passed. Still nothing happened. It's like Maddie's sitting on fire, and she called the crane and asked to dig the coffin up. It had been raining, so plowing the ground was much more difficult. It took half an hour for the lid of the coffin to gradually reveal itself. God, Ryan was curled up in a coffin. His whole body stiffened. His eyes rolled back and his mouth twitched. Ryan is in a state of extreme fear, and if Maddie's not mistaken, he may not be alive anymore.
Ryan! No!
After that, Maddie fainted and didn't know what else to do. According to what she heard, the crane man called the police. According to the investigation, maybe in the middle of the night, Ryan had a panic attack, combined with the narrow space which led to this tragic death. Before panicking, police found another video.
For you. You're so sorry for your sufferings.
In the video is Ryan with an eager look on his face saying,
Maddie,
Because I don't have the courage to speak to you directly, I will say it now. Now you see it, you must be editing videos. Maddie, I love you. I know I keep you busy by disappearing a lot these days. But actually I prepared a vacation for you and me. If you don't mind, please be my girlfriend. So? Maddie's heart clenched. If only she knew Ryan's feelings in advance. If only he had told her frankly before taking on this stupid challenge. If only she hadn't let the spider in because she was so frustrated. Things would have been different.
Day of my life. What an exhausting day.
There was a groan from somewhere outside the store. Lucy cautiously peeked out to see. It was a ragged homeless man. He was staring at the frozen meat counter. His mouth was drooling. His bloodshot eyes were wide open. His hand slid across the glass, which made a creaking sound. Lucy timidly asked,
Sir, how can I help you?
But he didn't say a word, just let out annoying, heavy breathing. Looking at the thin man, Lucy sighed softly.
He must have been starving for a long time.
There was brief news on TV about some apartment break-ins in the area, but Lucy didn't care much because the apartment complex she lived in had the best security. Suddenly, Lucy received a text from her roommate saying that she wouldn't be home and telling Lucy to lock the door carefully.
Never mind. Enjoy the night.
Lucy put the phone down on the table and looked up at the clock on the wall. The shift was finally over. She locked the door to check the goods before the next shift coworker arrived. Holding up a cold piece of meat, Lucy was startled by a strange noise. She turned around to find that the homeless man was still there. He licked his lips and smiled at Lucy, and then he kept banging his head on the front door like crazy. She staggered backward and slumped under the counter, while the bangs grew louder, until she heard the sound of a key being put into the lock and the door slightly open. Lucy quickly grabbed a pen from the counter and stood up. The person who just walked in was David, the co-worker on the next shift. "What's wrong?" David saw her panic and felt a little confused.
Didn't you see anyone at the door?
No. Anyway, what the heck is this? Ew, that's disgusting. David looked at the glass, frowning slightly. Lucy shivered when she saw the stain, but it seemed like he had already left. The clock struck 12 o'clock, so Lucy hurriedly let David take over and quickly went out the door. She comforted herself with the thought that maybe it was just a weird customer at night. Just then on the street, there was almost no one passing by. She walked along the pavement under the yellow, dim lights. Lucy heard the annoying rustle of slippers. She turned her head to squint at every corner of the empty street, but no one was there. So she continued to walk, but after a few steps, she stopped, still hearing footsteps whispering in her ears. She looked back. It was just herself on the road. She walked faster. The rustling appeared again, seemingly speeding up like her. This time it came along with a whistling sound. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest, and sweat soaked her uniform. She kept walking without daring to look back.
It's almost home. I will be fine.
Lucy reassured herself, but couldn't stop her body from shaking uncontrollably. The sound of footsteps running after Lucy became louder and more urgent. She ran up the stairs, but she was so panicked that she tripped. She suppressed the pain, picked up her things, and ran as fast as possible. Finally, Lucy frantically put the key in the lock.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
The man was so close. Footsteps and rattling of the stairs drew nearer. The whistle echoed throughout the dark corridor.
Please, please.
She finally got the key in the lock. She turned the key, rushed into the house, and slammed the door. The man also rushed over at this time, only a split second before he was able to catch Lucy. She closed the door and locked it, then gasped for air, slid to the floor, and began to cry.
Open the door, you little rat! Open it!
The man banged on the door and shouted, his hand constantly tugging at the doorknob. Lucy was panic-stricken and stepped back. Suddenly, everything fell silent. Lucy raised her head, trying to crawl up to the peephole to look outside. Suddenly, he jumped out of nowhere to meet Lucy's eyes. Knowing he couldn't do anything here, the man licked the peephole on the door and left. When there was no sound anymore, Lucy shakingly cracked open her door and stared out.
Hey!
The pervert pressed his face to the cracked door, so close that his drool splashed on her face. Lucy was frightened and stepped back. The crazy man turned the doorknob like crazy.
Open the door!
He shouted as he banged on the door. Lucy was shaking as she dialed the phone.
It's 911. What's your emergency?
Please help. Someone is trying to break into my house.
Hold on. We're on the way.
The man heard what Lucy was saying. He stopped pounding the door and left. Lucy leaned on the door, sobbing, her whole body trembling with such